Story 1. Dad kicked me out after my stepmom framed me for stealing my stepsister's college savings. Hey, so my estranged father reached out to me recently and I need to know if I did the right thing or not, since a lot of people have been giving me flack for how I reacted. So for context, he and I have not been on speaking terms for the last 8 years. I was 21 back when he kicked me out and had just graduated college, so I was living with my family for a couple of months before I started working and saved enough money to move out. My parents got divorced when I was 7, and when I turned 17, my dad started dating my stepmom, Becca. My stepmother had also been married before, but unfortunately, her husband had passed away 6 years before she started dating my father. She also had a daughter from her previous relationship, my stepsister Alexa, who was 4 years younger than me. The first time that I met Becca and Alexa, I sort of got a really weird vibe from them. Like they were not happy to meet me, but I thought that maybe they were just shy and I didn't think much of it. But the more time I spent with them, the less I thought they liked me. After 1 year of dating, Becca and Alexa moved in with us, but that was the year that I moved out for college, so I didn't spend much time with them at home. I would only get to see my family when I would come back home for the holidays, and every time that I would come back, they would always act very weird around me. They got married when I was in my 2nd year, and even then, they didn't seem to like me. I don't exactly know how to put it into words, but it was like they did not appreciate me being around and seemed much happier when it was just them and my father. After graduation, when I moved back in with the intention of staying at home so I could save some money before permanently moving out, I decided to talk to my father about this because I didn't want to live in a house where I felt unwelcome all the time. When I discussed it with him, though, he told me that I was just imagining it and Becca and Alexa loved me, so I decided to believe what he was saying and moved back in. But within a couple of weeks, he had been proven wrong. They definitely did not love me, and if anything, they actually hated having me around. Becca was constantly cold to me and rarely ever even acknowledged my existence. And Alexa seemed to have it in for me and was constantly trying to get on my nerves and pick fights with me. I brought it up with my dad a couple of times, but because their behavior around him was very different, he thought that I was just reading too much into the situation and that they were probably just getting used to having me around. Now this went on for a couple of months, and no matter how much I tried to avoid them, they just kept trying to make life difficult for me, and after a while, I even stopped complaining to my father about it because there was no point. All I wanted was just to save enough money to be able to move out. But I was kicked out of my home quite unceremoniously because Becca and Alexa framed me for stealing her college savings. One day, I had left the house around noon to go house hunting with a couple of my friends because Becca and Alexa were driving me crazy, and I really wanted to move out as soon as possible. I came back home in the evening, and my dad was already there. He looked extremely disappointed and told me to pack my stuff and leave as soon as I entered the house. I had no idea what was going on and I was caught off guard. When I asked him what was going on, he told me that he had never expected me to turn out to be such a desperate lowlife and he had never thought that I would stoop to such levels just for money. I had no idea what he was talking about and I had tears in my eyes because the things he was saying were really harsh. But instead of trying to talk to me, he told me that he had no time for my act and he just wanted me to leave. Then Becca entered the room and started shrieking at me for ruining Alexa's future and claimed that I had done all of this because I couldn't stand the fact that my father had finally moved on. While she was screaming at me about what I had supposedly done, I was able to piece together the story, and apparently, they were accusing me of stealing money from them from a card that they had lent me for emergencies and I had instead used it for luxury purchases. Becca claimed that I had apparently come to her a few weeks ago and said that I was running short on money, so she had made me an add-on on the account where she saved money for Alexa, but I had almost drained the account entirely and now there was no money left for Alexa to go to college. Apparently, I had lied about what I needed the money for and had bought several new bags, shoes, and clothes from really expensive brands with the money that she had put aside for her daughter. I was appalled because none of this had happened and she was lying through her teeth, so I told her to show me the proof of all of this and my dad said that there was no need for that because apparently they had gone through my room a couple of hours ago and they had already found everything they needed to confirm her story. He said that he had found all the items that had been purchased on that card stashed away under my bed secretly. And of course, when I told my father that she had never even added me on the card because if she had, I would have known, he told me that she had removed me after she received a phone call from the bank that morning itself. It had taken a few hours, but now it was done, and when I told him to call the bank authorities to confirm this, he told me that he did not need any more proof to know that his daughter was a disgusting person and a thief. No matter how hard I tried to convince him that Becca was lying, he did not believe me, and eventually, I had to leave. After that day, I did not have any contact with my father. He had shown me where his priorities were, and after the way I had been insulted, I never wanted to reach out to him again. I spent a couple of days with a friend before moving into my first apartment, and I struggled with money for a couple of months, but after that I was able to make it on my own. I lead a pretty nice life now, and I'm even planning on buying my own house in a couple of months. For 8 years, I've had absolutely no contact with my father, and I have avoided every family event on my father's side like the plague because I just never wanted to see him. My mother and I have kept in touch, and she had also cut off my father around the same time that I did because of the way he had behaved with me. But right now she's kind of taking a side, which is why I'm confused. Anyway, a couple of days ago, my dad showed up at my house and I was very curious to know what he had to say. So I opened the door to speak to him, and he told me that he had got the address from my mother. He told me that he was here to apologize to me for everything because only recently did he find out that my stepmom had made up the entire thing because she wanted somebody to cover Alexa's college fund. For years, she had been using him for his money, and he had no idea because he thought he was just supporting his family, but after what he had just found out from his in-laws, he wanted me to forgive him and give him a chance. Apparently, Becca had had a fight with her parents a couple of months ago, and they had recently reached out to my father to let him know the truth about the incident over which he had kicked me out. So basically, just as I had suspected, she had bought all those things for herself and her daughter, but she instead placed them in my room to frame me and make it seem like I was hiding things. For good measure, she had even had her parents call her pretending to be bank employees and convinced my dad that she had in fact made me an add-on on the card. The real reason she had done all of this was because she was the one who had drained the college fund that her deceased husband had left for Alexa with her extravagant lifestyle, and she didn't want to have to ask my father to cover her expenses because she didn't want to come off as a gold digger, and she also hated me because she thought that my relationship with my father was going to get in their way, and that's why she had always disliked me. That's how she came up with that plan, so she could get rid of me and also create a situation where my father himself would have to offer to cover Alexa's college expenses, and she was able to kill two birds with one stone. When the plan succeeded, for 8 years her parents had said nothing, but recently, because of their fight, they had decided that it was finally time to dig up old skeletons out of the closet and tell my father the truth. He told me that he had already filed for a divorce from her a couple of weeks ago with the help of his old lawyer, and now he had come to reconcile with me. He said that he knew one of my friend's fathers was a really reputed divorce attorney, and now he wanted me to fulfill my duty as his daughter and help him out by putting him in touch with my friend's dad because Becca and her lawyer had come up with a ridiculously one-sided petition. My dad also wanted me to get a lawyer. He wanted to agree to lower his rates for my father. It was so outrageous that I literally ended up laughing in his face before shutting the door. I couldn't imagine that he had actually believed that he would just come by, apologize to me, and then ask me for help and everything would be fine again. I was obviously not going to be helping him in any way whatsoever, and if he wanted to hire my friend's father as a lawyer, then he would have to do whatever everyone else does. Contact him himself and pay the price that everyone else does. It was not my problem that his old lawyer was unwilling to fight this case because it seemed too complicated and he just wanted to retire. So after I shut the door in his face, I told him to go away before I called the cops. I didn't think that there was anything left to say, but after that, my mother called me up to let me know that what I was doing was not right. I honestly have no idea why she's on my dad's side all of a sudden, but I got really mad when she told me that she didn't agree with my decision of not helping him. She said that everyone makes mistakes and my dad was also a normal human being just like us, so it was not fair for me to hold him to an unrealistic standard and act like it was not okay for him to make mistakes just because he was my father. It was not that I had a problem with the fact that he had made a mistake by trusting his wife, but my problem was with the fact that he had trusted her over me, his daughter, and I still haven't forgotten the fact that he had called me a disgusting person and a desperate lowlife when he kicked me out of the house he had raised me. He literally knew me, and in spite of that, he thought that I was capable of doing such a nasty thing that I was being accused of. It was the fact that even after 8 years he was not just here to say sorry but to ask for my help. If he hadn't needed my help, I don't think he would have shown up to apologize. It took him 8 years to realize that he had made a mistake, and here he was repeating exactly the kind of behavior that I had hated him for. I tried to explain this to my mother, but she just kept saying that he had accepted his fault no matter how late it was, and that counted for something, so instead of acting like this, I should forgive him and be the bigger person because I definitely should help him out. The thing is, I don't think I can help him out even if I want to because granted, my friend and I are very close and I'm pretty sure that I can ask him to talk to his dad and work with my father. But I don't think I will be able to convince them to lower their cost because the best divorce attorney in town doesn't come for cheap. So why would I even commit to something that I'm not even sure I would be able to pull off? My mother and I ended up arguing about this for about half an hour and both of us were pretty irritated with each other by the end of the phone call. She just refused to see where I was coming from and I didn't understand what she was even talking about because I didn't think she made sense and now we are also not speaking to each other and I'm wondering if I made a mistake or not. I don't think that what I did with my father was that wrong, but my mother's reaction is making me think otherwise. AITA for refusing to help my estranged father with his divorce? Update 1. So, I've decided that I'm going to stay away from both my parents. You guys in the comments are right. I don't owe my father anything after how he treated me, and the fact that he apologized to me literally weeks after finding out the truth just goes to show that he wouldn't have apologized if he did not need my help. Thank you so much to everyone who commented. I really needed that. As for my mother, I don't really know what's gotten into her and why she's taking my dad's side after years of not speaking to him, but I don't really want to find out what's going on either. On the phone call, I asked her if she was talking to my dad and if she was in touch with him. She said no. She told me that for the past 8 years after I had been kicked out. She had not had any contact with my father, but he had been the one to reach out to her on the day that I slammed the door shut on his face. She told me that he had been crying and that's why she had decided to hear him out because my father is not exactly a very emotional man and it's very difficult to make him cry. So she wanted to know what was going on that had made him call her, and that's how she found out what had happened when he tried to apologize to me. But apart from that, she had never spoken to him before in the last 8 years. I find that hard to believe now since she was exactly in the same place as I was. She would find it more difficult to forgive him. Back when my parents got divorced and continued to co-parent me, they were really good friends and I suppose this incident has made them reconnect or something. Whatever it is, my mother's reaction made me realize that she doesn't know me as well as I thought she did and she definitely doesn't understand me because if she did, she wouldn't have gotten mad at me for not forgiving my dad instantly. Anyway, I'm just going to stay away from both of them. It's not going to be hard not to speak to my dad because I've been doing that for the past 8 years already. But it's going to be very difficult not to interact with my mother either. For several years, she has pretty much been the only family that I knew and now I've lost her as well. I feel bad about it, but again, there's not much that I can do. I'm going to give her a week to apologize for what she said and how she reacted, and if she comes to her senses within that timeline, then it's great, but if she doesn't, I don't even know what I'll do then. I might have to cut her off permanently after that, and even the thought of that makes me very sad, but I can't help it. I have to look out for myself as well. Update 2. Okay, so 1 week has not yet passed, but my mom did reach out to me. Unfortunately, it was not to apologize. I hadn't blocked her on anything because I wanted to see if she was going to talk to me or not, and she did. She texted me yesterday asking if she could visit me and talk to me in person because she thought it would be better to clear the air personally. I agreed to let her visit because I wanted to sort things out with her as well, and I honestly thought she was going to apologize, so when she came over, I was very nice to her and everything. She started off by telling me that she had been thinking about the last conversation that we had had, and maybe she hadn't tried to understand me that well. So she was here to give that conversation another shot. I thought it was a bit weird that she was asking me to repeat the same things, but I did, hoping that it would help her understand where I was coming from, and then maybe she would find it easier to apologize to me so we could end this once and for all. But after I was done explaining my feelings on this whole situation, she told me that now that we had calmly discussed this, she wanted me to have the same conversation with my father because she knew that I was capable of answering with dignity instead of slamming doors shut, and my dad deserved an explanation for everything. Because even when he had thought that I had stolen Becca's money, he did not call the cops on me, and he even convinced Becca to do the same. It doesn't matter that everything was made up. What matters is that he tried his best to protect me even when he thought that I had done the wrong thing, so the least I could do was give him a chance to talk to me, and she said that she knew she had raised a daughter who was kind at heart and wouldn't say no to this. But I told her that she didn't know me as well as she thought she did, and I had no forgiveness in my heart for my father because he had treated me like crap in the past and I don't owe him anything. Not even an explanation. I was very upset that even after all of this, she had not apologized to me, so I told her that after this, she should only contact me if she wanted to apologize, and otherwise, I did not want to speak to her. But then she started fidgeting and said that I shouldn't act this way because at the end of the day, family is all that we have, and if we can't even rely on them to forgive us when we are wrong, then it'll be a miserable existence for us. I thought it was just a bunch of BS, and I told her that I did not want to speak to her and discuss this any further, so I asked her to leave. That was when she finally told me that she couldn't leave because she had promised my father that she would get me to talk to him, and unless I told her that I would talk to him at least once, she couldn't go because she had to live up to her promises, and she really wanted me to work things out with my dad. She claimed that she did not want to lose me, and she was really sorry that I felt like both my parents had let me down, but ultimately, they were my parents and I should forgive them because the few things that they had done wrong are nothing in comparison to everything that they had done right in the past, and that counts for something. I thought it was ridiculous for her to even say that, and I told her that it was her mistake, that she had made promises to my father that she didn't even know she could live up to, and it was not my responsibility to make sure she was able to stay true to her word. I asked her to leave once again, but then she finally told me that she couldn't because my dad was sitting outside in the car, and he was waiting to be called inside, and she didn't want to let him down. That's when I finally snapped and I started screaming at my mother because this was a serious violation. I had made it very clear to her that I did not want to speak to my father, and she had taken the liberty of bringing him here convinced that she could change my mind. Of course, I lost my temper and I started screaming at her. I told her that she was a terrible mother and I was done with her. She started crying, but it made no difference to me because I was furious. I just kept telling her to get out, and she kept saying that she was sorry about all of this, but I was in no mood to hear it. She finally left after about 15 minutes of arguing, and while she was leaving, I screamed at her and I told her that if she or my father ever came back, then I would make sure to call the cops on them. Then I blocked her, and I think I'm going to talk to a lawyer about getting a protective order against these people if they decide to visit me again. Update 3. Alright, so something literally insane happened today, and I don't even know how to talk to anybody about it, and that's why I'm here to talk about it, because I really need to get this off my chest. So today, I was at home because I had a day off and I planned on doing nothing. But then Becca and Alexa showed up, and that's not even the most crazy part of what happened today. Of course, when I realized that they were standing outside my door, I was infuriated and I told them to get away instantly, and I had even dialed the number to call the cops, but Becca told me that she was not there to harass me, but to tell me the truth about my father and why exactly he needed my help. She was just as nasty and rude as before, and it was good to know that she hadn't changed in 8 years, but I had no interest in speaking to her initially, so I told her that whatever it is that she had to say, I wasn't interested. But then she said that I would definitely be interested if I knew what she was here to tell me, and give me an explanation as to why my mother was suddenly on my dad's side after not speaking to him for years. Supposedly, I'm not gonna lie, that caught me by surprise because I didn't think she would know about any of this, and I really wanted to know what was going on, so after some deliberation, I invited her in, but she refused to even step inside my house and said that she was only here to tell me the truth, and then she would be gone with her daughter standing right outside my door. She told me that a couple of weeks ago her parents had revealed the truth about the incident that had taken place 8 years back to my father, and they got into a massive fight over it, and he decided to file for a divorce. The reason she had been fighting with her parents was because she stopped sending them money every month like she used to, because even my father wasn't giving her the kind of allowance that she wanted, and she got a bit too greedy, in case anyone wanted to know what exactly they had been fighting about. And because my father had cut down her allowance without an explanation, she decided to do some sleuthing and found out that my dad was having an affair with my mother, and she realized that he was probably planning on leaving her, which is why he had been saving money, so she decided to stay with him, and then she would file for a divorce on her own terms eventually. But before she could do that, my dad found out the truth, and their whole fight happened, and both of them found out about each other's true colors. Under normal circumstances, it would have been very easy for my dad to end this marriage without giving Becca anything. But because he had also been cheating and had been unfaithful to her, and Becca hadn't worked in the past 10 years, she drew up a petition that would benefit her, and he wasn't fine with that, which is why they were fighting tooth and nail right now. The reason she was telling me about all of this was that a couple of days ago, my father had apparently threatened her on the phone and told her to back off because I was apparently going to put him in touch with the divorce attorney, and then she would be screwed. Obviously, he was bluffing, but Becca did not want to take that risk, so she had come to tell me the truth. I was literally shocked that all of this was happening, but in a way, I was glad that I finally had an explanation as to why my mother had been acting so strange about my father. Once Becca had told me everything, she told me that it was up to me whether I wanted to help my dad or not, and then she left. For the first time in her life, she had been of some actual use to me, and I'm grateful to her. After this, There is no way that I'm ever going to keep in touch with my parents again. I can't believe that my mother tried to gaslight me into believing that my dad deserved a second chance for her own selfish reasons. My parents truly are a match made in heaven. They definitely belong with each other, and I'm glad that I'm not in their life anymore. I'm going to be living on my own now, and I would like to thank my lucky stars that I had the good sense not to give any of them. Update 4. Hi, so it has been a couple of months since I posted here, and people wanted to know how things were going with me. So it's been going pretty well, and I'm pretty happy on my own. I do occasionally miss my mother, but then I remind myself of how she betrayed me, and then it's a bit easier for me to deal with her absence. I heard from a couple of relatives that my dad is now back with my mother again, and his divorce was finalized a few weeks ago, I think. I don't know what exactly he lost in the divorce, and I'm not interested in knowing either. Some of my relatives have been invited to my parents' wedding in a couple of weeks. They wanted me to know about it in case I want to show up and make things right with them, but I don't really care, and I definitely do not want to make anything right with them. I'm happier and better off on my own. So that's how life is right now, and I'm pretty content. Now on to the next story. Story 2. My husband invited his cousin on our honeymoon without telling me and started arguing when I said I didn't want to go on the trip anymore. So, I left him at the airport, and now his family is upset. 3 days ago, I was supposed to go on my honeymoon with my husband, but he invited his brother to come along. Well, he's not actually his brother, he's his cousin, but even then, it's really weird. I ended up not going on the trip at all because I was so annoyed. My husband, Joey, 27M, and I, 27F, met through friends, and after dating for almost 4 years, we got married a couple of weeks ago. For our honeymoon, we were supposed to go to Italy, but the trip ended up getting canceled for the reasons I just mentioned. The worst part was that he did not think it was important to consult with me before he made such a big decision. He just took it upon himself and booked all the flight tickets and stuff for his cousin, Pete, 28M, without even asking me if I would be fine with that. The time that he chose to tell me about all of this was so convenient as well. It was just 30 minutes before our flight was supposed to take off. It was at that point that I decided that I couldn't do this. While we were waiting, he told us that we would get 2 days to ourselves before Pete joined us, and just sprung it on me so casually, like it was something that we had discussed earlier. When I asked him what he meant by that, he told me that he hadn't said anything about it earlier because he did not want me to freak out like I was doing at the moment. He had invited Pete to accompany us on our honeymoon, and after 2 days, he would be joining us so he could take his mind off his situation. Around the same time that we were getting married, Pete's wife, Julia, had told him that she wanted a divorce. Apparently, after coming back from our wedding, she had said that attending our wedding had made her realize certain things, like how she was not meant to be with him. She was just not happy with him anymore and had apparently fallen in love with somebody else. She did not specify who it was, but she had said that she couldn't be with him anymore and be dishonest to herself and him, so she needed to get away from him. Pete was very depressed about it, so he had been really upset for the past couple of weeks ever since we got married, and that was why Joey had decided to invite him to come along with us so that it would help him cheer up. Like any other normal human being, I got really annoyed, and I told him that this was not cool with me at all. I said that if Pete was joining us on our honeymoon, it was completely meaningless, and I didn't care what he had said, but I wanted him to cancel immediately. But he started arguing with me and said that I was being heartless. Pete was going through a divorce, and he had been married for almost 3 years already since he and Julia had been high school sweethearts. Now, suddenly, she was not in love with him anymore, so he was going through a much harder time. As his family, our moral duty was to be there for him. He thought that coming along with us on our honeymoon would be giving him a well-deserved break from everything, and he wanted me to know that this was important for them. He said that we were already getting 2 days to ourselves since he would be joining us later, and that should be enough for me. It was really exasperating, and I was very frustrated. While talking to him, I just grabbed my things and told him that I didn't want to go on our honeymoon anymore. I told him to enjoy the trip with Pete, and I left almost immediately. He tried to catch up with me, but I pretty much made a run for it, took the first cab I found, and went to my parents' house. Since then, I've been staying here, and I've been very upset about everything. For the past 4 years that I've been with Joey, we have had our ups and downs, but they have always been normal fights that other couples also have. But this is just weird. From what I know, he did end up going on the trip with Pete, and that's what pissed me off even more. After I left the airport, he kept texting me to come back and said that he couldn't cancel everything because he had already paid for everything and some of it was non-refundable. He didn't want to lose his deposit, so he had to go on the trip, and he just wanted me to rethink what I was doing and come back to him. He kept trying to convince me that he was doing this so that he could be there for Pete, and even said that after this was done, he would have a second honeymoon for just the two of us. He just wanted me to compromise this one time. Truth be told, what really hurt me was the fact that he had decided to spring this on me at the very last minute, so I could not even do anything about it. I thought that it was really manipulative and dishonest of him, and that's not going to fly with me. If I'm in a relationship with somebody, I need them to be completely transparent with me, and I need to be able to trust them. After what he did, I don't think that's going to happen. So, I messaged him last evening telling him that I was going to file for a divorce or an annulment or whatever, but I just wanted this relationship to be over. I was very disappointed with it as well, but I couldn't see any other way forward. I don't think that after what has happened, we can just pretend like it's all fine and then move on with our lives. I'm not the kind of person who can just brush things under the rug and pretend it's okay. It sucked that our marriage was only going to last a couple of weeks, but I couldn't help it. This was not my fault. But then he responded to my message saying that I was overreacting and that we could just discuss this when he came back from the trip. That was really annoying for me as well because I was already so pissed off at the fact that he had actually decided to go on the trip and be with his cousin. It was just ridiculous. I told him that his behavior right now was unreasonable and he couldn't honestly expect me to forgive him and just move on. So I told him that it did not matter to me what he believed. I was just done with all of this and I wanted to get out of this relationship as fast as I could. I was going to wait for him to come back because I obviously could not get this marriage ended without his consent, but I was going to talk to my lawyer and have everything prepared. Then, I blocked him so I wouldn't have to entertain this anymore. Now I need some peace of mind for myself and I need time and space to process all of this. But it seems to me that his family just cannot accept that fact. This morning, I received a bunch of messages from my in-laws saying that what I was doing was really messed up and that I should at least give him a chance to try and fix the situation. They agree that what he did was not right, but my decision to end the marriage is definitely an overreaction, according to them. And why wouldn't it be? Obviously, they're going to take their son's side over mine. We have had a good relationship over the past couple of years, and I thought that they, at the very least, would realize that what he did was immensely screwed up, but they think that I should give him a chance. My parents think that I should do whatever I feel is right, and I think that I should end the marriage. However, judging by the reactions of people so far, I'm very confused. His parents are quite against the idea of ending our marriage, and they think we should really wait things out and try to at least talk to each other, sort things out, and come to a conclusion only after having a conversation about this in person once he returns from his trip. My parents think that whatever I decide is going to be for the best, so they are pretty much neutral about all of this. I know that they really mean it when they say that they're going to be on my side no matter what. I have spoken to a couple of my friends about this as well, but they have been pretty divided. Some of them think that I should wait for him to come back, discuss this with him, and then take a step. The others think that what I'm doing right now is the right thing to do. They believe that I should file for an annulment and get this over with because what he did was not okay. So, am I the asshole for ending my marriage because my husband decided to invite his cousin, who is going through a divorce, on our honeymoon? Edit. So, a lot of people have had questions about the closeness of Joey and Pete, and well, I would say that they have been pretty close. From what I know, they have been the best of friends ever since they were little, and yeah, they're close. However, I still don't think that's an excuse to invite him on our honeymoon and expect me to be fine with it. Also, I had no idea that he was going through a divorce. In fact, I don't think anybody in the family knew about it until all of this was uncovered. From what I have gathered so far, Julia had just filed for a divorce after we got married, and the proceedings still haven't started. It's only going to commence once he returns from this trip. Julia and I have never really been friends. We have interacted a couple of times when we met on the holidays and stuff, but apart from that, we don't have much to talk about, so I'm definitely not going to talk about this to her. Also, a lot of people have been asking about who she was actually in love with, and honestly, I have no idea. Joey didn't really get into that, and I don't think she has specified who it was, so there's no way that I can disclose it because I don't really know. But if I'm somehow able to find out who she's actually in love with or whether she's having an affair or not, I will definitely be posting it here and keep you guys updated. For now, whatever information that I have mentioned it in my post, and yeah, that's it. I'm not too worried about the financial aspect of the divorce because I don't think that if we do get our marriage annulled, we're going to have any trouble separating that since we have always maintained separate finances and records. We don't really have that many joint assets either, so I think that's going to be a pretty easy process. But I don't even know what I'm going to do right now, so I haven't thought that far. I'm just trying to process what's going on as of now, and even that's proving to be pretty difficult for me. Date 1. Hello, so I've spoken to my lawyer, and I've told him that I want him to draw up the papers to get this marriage annulled. It was an incredibly difficult thing to do, but it's been almost a week and he is still blocked. He can contact me in other ways, and yet he has chosen not to do that, so I don't really know what to say anymore. I had only blocked his phone number and he couldn't call me, but I haven't blocked him on social media, so if he really wanted to speak to me, he could have chosen to text me on literally any social media platform. But there is not a single message that I have received from him. Even his parents just called me one time and then there's been radio silence from that end as well. I've been feeling terrible about all of this for the past couple of days, and that's why I was forced to make this decision. I had been considering letting him come back, and then after discussing things and sorting things out in person, we could go ahead with whatever we wanted to do. But now, I think there is no moving on from this. Thankfully, I still had the keys to the house, so I went over to our place, gathered all the stuff that belonged to me, and moved back with my parents. When he comes back, I'm probably going to have to talk to him, and then we can sell all the furniture that we bought together and end the lease on that house, or at least remove me from the agreement. I've already spoken to a couple of people, and I'm going to start looking for a separate apartment now. I just want to keep myself busy so that I don't have to think about what's going on in my life and how miserable I'm feeling currently. I keep thinking that he is going to text me at some point, but so far it hasn't happened. I keep hoping that maybe there will be some way that this will work out, but I really think that it's unlikely at this point. My parents and most of my friends have been very supportive, so I'm very grateful for that. According to our plan, Joey and I were supposed to return from our honeymoon in 2 days. So, if he and Pete are still going to stick to our itinerary, they are going to be back in 2 days, and after that I can finally speak to him in person and put an end to all of this. Even saying it hurts me so much, but I know that it's the right thing to do and I just have to end this for my own good. I just hope that things go smoothly when he comes back. Update 2. So, Joey and Pete came back from their trip yesterday according to our itinerary. I know that because after they returned, he texted me on Instagram to ask if we could talk. I was working at the time, so I didn't really want to respond to it. But when I received that text, I was so upset that I ended up replying anyway. I told him that no, we couldn't talk because the time to talk had passed, and he had chosen not to contact me for the past week even though he had screwed up royally and hurt my feelings. I had no interest in speaking to him, and we had nothing to talk about. I also informed him that I had already spoken to my lawyer and now that he was back, we could move forward with the proceedings and get this marriage annulled. For a couple of minutes, there was no reply from him. But then he told me that he was really sorry for not contacting me earlier, but apparently he was just trying to be there for Pete. He said that he could understand that I was upset, but there were a lot of things that I did not know, and a lot of factors that he had to consider. If I just spoke to him, then he would be able to explain his reasons as to why he had done these things. I'm not going to lie, that really piqued my interest because if he had reasons I really wanted to know, even though I was not sure what kind of reasons could have possibly justified something like this. I wanted to know if he had a real, genuine explanation for any of this. So, after thinking about it for a while, I told him to come over to my parents' house today, and in the evening he's supposed to come by and we can discuss things. I don't think I'm going to go back to him no matter what the circumstances are, but at least I'm going to get some answers out of him. I deserve that much, I know that. Also, my lawyer had dropped off the papers for the annulment this morning. So, even if I don't get a satisfactory answer as to why any of this has happened, at least I'm going to be able to get him to fill in the paperwork and then we can move forward with this process. Either way, we were going to have to meet at some point, and I couldn't have avoided him forever, so I'm just going to get this over with as soon as possible. Hopefully, he has a good enough explanation for all of this because if he doesn't, it's just going to mess with my head even more and make me feel even more miserable than I already do. Anyway, he's going to be here in a couple of hours, so I'm just mentally preparing myself for that. Update 3. Joey came by as he said, and he just left about an hour ago. I'm still reeling from everything that he has told me. When he came by, he seemed very awkward, and he started off by apologizing to me. He told me that he knows very well that what he did was a horrible thing to do, and he has broken my trust, so he is well aware of the fact that it's going to be either very difficult or probably impossible to repair that. So, he's not going to force me to come back or beg me to fix things with him. I thought that it was pretty surprising because I had really expected him to at least try and make things work, since initially it had seemed like he was going to do that. But when he said that he could understand where I was coming from and why I did not want to stay married to him anymore, I thought this was a different discussion from what I presumed it was going to be. After his apology, he went on to tell me that Pete had always been a brother to him and they had grown up together. So, knowing that he was going through a divorce and the fact that his wife was in love with somebody else, he knew that it couldn't have been easy. He felt really bad for the guy, and that was one of the reasons he had invited him to come along on our honeymoon. But that was not all. It was just the tip of the iceberg. Apparently, the real reason that he had invited Pete was not just because he felt bad for him, but because the person that Julia was actually in love with was none other than him. When he said that, I honestly thought that he was joking, and I really didn't know how to react for a good couple of minutes. Then I asked him how he knew that and at what point exactly did he find out about it. So, he went on to tell me that he had found out because Julia had confessed to him the night before our wedding. He even unlocked his phone and showed me the text that she had sent him, and there it was. I could hardly believe what I was seeing. From the time that I had known his family, I had always noticed that he and Julia seemed to have a very strong platonic relationship, but it had never even occurred to me that the person she was in love with could have been Joey, because I had always just written them off as friends and nothing more. But that was clearly not the case. When I saw that text, I asked him why he hadn't told me about it, because this seemed important, and I believe that as his fiancée, I should have known that somebody in the family had literally confessed their love to him one night before our wedding. But Joey told me that he did not want to stir up any drama on the night before the wedding, so he decided not to tell me anything. I thought that it was a very lame reason, and I told him that not telling me was a pretty bad idea, and once again he did not fight with me but just agreed and said that he was not thinking straight. He was just trying to avoid drama at any cost, so he kept things quiet. On the day of our wedding, after the ceremony was over, he decided to speak to Julia in person and tell her that this was never going to happen. He said that he had taken Julia aside for a couple of minutes during the reception, and when they had spoken, he had asked if she had meant what she had said in the text. And when she confirmed it, he told her that she had to leave Pete because if she didn't even love him, she was just wasting his time and he deserved better. Besides, if she didn't tell him, he was definitely going to. They had a bit of an argument about it because Julia did not want to tell him. She apparently believed that since Joey was not going to break his relationship with me regardless of whether she loved him or not, it seemed like a total waste to tell Pete the truth and leave him, because even if she was not completely happy with him, she was at least content. But Joey said that she was being disgusting, and if she really did not love him, then she needed to leave him. My husband has apparently had a huge role to play in the divorce of his brother, and out of guilt, he had invited him to accompany us on our honeymoon so that he could spend some time with us and not feel as miserable as he would have felt if he was alone. He explained to me that he had known how much Pete loved Julia. He knew that this was going to be very difficult for him, and he just didn't want to leave him alone. After hearing him out, I tried to be quiet for a couple of minutes and process all this information. Then I asked him why he hadn't just been honest with me from the beginning. All these problems that were ruining our relationship were caused due to a complete lack of transparency on his end. He had no answer for that. He just said that he didn't want to get into any of this because he thought it was going to lead to more drama and confrontations, and he was not very good at any of that. After this discussion, he told me that now if I still wanted to proceed with the annulment, I could definitely do so, but he just wanted to get this off his chest and let me know the truth. So, I told him that getting the marriage annulled was not something that I was excited about, but it was a necessity at this point. Very clearly, he was still struggling to be honest with me, and that was not going to work in a marriage. I told him that I appreciated the fact that he had come clean to me, but right now it was too little and too late. Because he was trying so hard to make sure that he did not leave Pete alone, he sort of took me for granted and ended up leaving me alone. I then went on to tell him how miserable I had been for the past couple of days, and he hadn't even bothered to check up on me, and that was what hurt me the most. He tried to justify himself by saying that he was trying to be there for Pete and at least do one thing with full sincerity, but I told him that it did not matter. He had made certain promises to me when we started dating. That he would always be there for me and he would always make sure that I knew how much he loved me. Even when we got married, these things were in his vows, but after that, I couldn't feel his love, and neither did I feel like he was being there for me. I told him that I could understand that he had felt lost when Julia sent him that message, but if I was in his place, the first thing that would have occurred to me was that I had to tell my fiancé, the person that I love the most, and then we could deal with this together. He had nothing to say to that, and he acknowledged the fact that he had messed up. Then he asked me if I still loved him, and after thinking about it, I told him that I did, but it did not matter. Love was not enough to sustain a relationship, and that was obvious at this point. So, I told him that whether I loved him or not was immaterial after everything that had happened. I think both of us needed time to heal, and going our separate ways would be the best way to do that for now. When I said that, he just nodded, and I saw that he had tears in his eyes, and I felt really bad. But I know that we have no other way out of this. So, in spite of how terrible I was feeling, the two of us filled out the paperwork, and we are going to go to get our marriage annulled in a couple of days. I'm still trying to process everything that I have learned this evening, and it's not going to be easy to move on from any of this, but I'm going to have to at least try. We had one last hug before he left today, and I almost felt like I was going to break down, but I didn't. I stayed strong, and I think I'm going to have to do that until I'm able to move on from this completely. So, wish me luck. I have a feeling that I'm going to need it. Date for. Hey, so it's been close to a year, I think, since I broke up with Joey. We got the marriage annulled, and a couple of weeks after that, I gathered the last of my things from our house and moved into my own apartment. It was very difficult for me to go back to living on my own after years of living with Joey, but I had to get used to it. For the first couple of months after the breakup, we steered clear of each other and did not speak to each other if we could avoid it. But about 4 months ago, we met again at a wedding since one of our common friends was getting married, and we had both been invited. We both attended, and when we met, we were friendly with each other. Of course, it was nothing like how it used to be, and I, to be honest, am glad about it. I had expected that it was going to be very hard for me to see him again, but honestly, it was not that bad, and we are back on speaking terms. But we're just friends now. I got to know that while Pete was getting divorced, Joey decided to tell him the truth about why this was happening and that Julia was actually in love with him. But once he found out that it was him, he decided to cut him off and they no longer speak to each other. So, taking him on our honeymoon obviously did not soften the blow like he had expected it to. We even joked about how it would have been better for us to just go on the honeymoon ourselves and maybe that would have saved our marriage. We hung out together, reminisced about old times together with our friends, and had a generally fun time. He told me that he had moved out of our old house a couple of months after I moved out because without me, he had nobody to split the rent with and it was getting unaffordable for him. He also told me that he had quit his job and was now starting something of his own, which he had always talked about when we were together, and I was really happy for him. I told him a little about my life as well, and we discovered that we live just a couple of blocks away from each other. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm happy to be in this neutral space as of now. To be honest, I'm not really sure if I have completely moved on from him yet or not, but I know that being on good terms with him makes me happy. So, maybe our relationship didn't last, but I guess this friendship might. Okay, now on to the next story. Story 3. I'm divorcing my wife of 20 years after discovering she cheated on me with at least 10 guys in college and introduced me to some of them. My wife, 44F, and I, 43M, have been married 20 years. We started dating in high school when I was a junior and she was a senior. We were long distance for her first 2 years of college while I was in high school and did 1 year at community college. We then went to college in the same city for a year and have lived together since. We got married the summer after I graduated college. Our marriage has been pretty great so far, but I initiated a divorce after I discovered that she was sleeping with multiple other men for the 2 years we were long distance. Just after Christmas, we got together with a few friends of hers from college to catch up, have dinner, and hang out. We talked about a lot of stuff, and my wife mentioned that we met in high school, not that we dated, just that we met. Her old college roommate commented that it was crazy that we met in high school, had a few wild years in college, and then ended up together. I played along and commented that I didn't know if my wife was as crazy as I was. The roommate started to tell a story, but my wife cut her off and said she was uncomfortable about it. I sensed something was up, so I said that we actually started dating in high school and were together for my wife's entire time at college. All of my wife's friends got really quiet, and the rest of the dinner was awkward. On the way out, one of her other roommates took me aside and said I should have an honest conversation about what happened at college. I asked my wife about it on the way home, and she kind of blew me off. I told her it was important that she was honest with me, and again she said it wasn't important. When we got home, I told her I was going to stay at my brother's house until she was ready to talk about what happened in college. The next day, she came over and admitted to sleeping with several men during her first 2 years of college. She said she didn't consider it a big deal at the time because we were long distance and she didn't think a high school romance would last. I pressed for more details, and she said it was at least 10 different men, including at least 3 guys she introduced to me as friends when I came to visit on weekends and 1 guy she was still in contact with. I told her that I wanted a divorce and would be starting the paperwork as soon as I could, which I did on January 2nd this year. Her family and most of my family are telling me I shouldn't throw away my marriage over a few mistakes. I've stood by my belief that cheating on me with multiple men for years is unacceptable no matter when it happened. The fact that she continued to maintain relationships with these guys right in front of me was an unacceptable amount of disrespect. We have 2 children, but they are 17 and 19, and I believe they will understand why I need to end the marriage. Am I wrong for leaving? I feel like I'm going crazy with the number of people telling me to overlook years of infidelity and decades of lies. Comments. Comment 1. If she wants to do the work to remain in your life in any capacity, that's up to you guys. You should absolutely do what you need to do to feel comfortable with your way forward. She robbed you of your agency for 20 years and then invited people who had violated you into your life. I don't blame you for feeling whatever way you do. I hope you and your children can navigate this as well as possible, and if there is a way you can live happily in whatever capacity with your wife, then I'm all for that too. Do what's best for you, screw how anyone else feels. Wishing you the best. Comment 2. It would change a lot if I felt that she wanted to fix this. Throughout our conversation about it, she repeatedly dismissed my feelings and told me I was overreacting to totally normal behavior. She didn't show any regret or consideration for how it hurt me until she realized I was serious about divorce. Then she got defensive and angry. She didn't offer to fix things in any way until I started the paperwork and notified her that I had a lawyer. I think we can navigate being parents. Our kids are older, and I've been putting away money for college since high school for a long time, so a lot of the custody and monetary issues that come up shouldn't be a big problem. We're also both financially stable and make good money. Comment 3. She cheated and lied to you, then maintained contact with at least one of her EF buddies and introduced you to many of the guys that were banging her. That is not only dishonest but cruel. I think you are 100% in the right. Who knows what else she's done? You have no way of knowing. Comment 4. If she slept around in college and told you about it and you reconciled, no issue there. But she kept it from you, she kept in contact with one. She introduced you to her flings as friends at the time. That's completely messed up. You have a right to divorce her. She lied to you for 20 years. She does not respect you now or then. More info. I've hired a lawyer. He drafted an intent to separate and sent her a copy by certified mail. As far as I know, that's not any legal divorce paper with the state, but rather a part of the process to ensure that she has an opportunity to hire her own lawyer if she wants to contest it. Actually going through the divorce will likely take months. I'm not really moving out. I've been crashing at my brother's place while I make arrangements for a more permanent living scenario. As far as timing goes, the dinner happened on the 26th of December. I went to my brother's house that night to cool off and give her a chance to think about things. We talked several times over 4 to 5 days, and she made it clear that she didn't believe she did anything wrong. If there were any kind of remorse/regret/basic consideration of my feelings on her part, I probably would have waited. However, she didn't, so I found a divorce lawyer, and he had boilerplate intent to separate agreements that we filled out and sent over the same day. Even now, we're obviously not legally divorced, and I don't even know if there is a legal concept of separation in my state, but I've made it clear this is happening and started the process. Edit 1. I obviously can't answer every question/comment, but I wanted to provide some detail for common questions. The reason I posted this is that my wife and a few friends have been saying it's common to sleep with other folks when you're in a long-distance relationship and that I'm kind of the odd one out for not sleeping around. I felt like I was being gaslit, but I wanted an outside perspective. We live in a state with a waiting period to finalize a divorce, so I felt it was a reasonable idea to get some insight before things are finalized. After these comments, I see a handful of folks saying it's normal to sleep around during a long-distance relationship, but it seems to be a significant minority. We saw each other a couple of weekends a month during the 2-year college period. I lived about 3 hours away from her college, so it was long distance but not like cross-country. This was not a situation where we went months without seeing each other. The 3 guys I met while she was in college were meetups that happened during parties. The subject of me being a boyfriend didn't really come up, so I honestly don't know if these guys knew anything. The one guy we're still in contact with married a mutual friend from college. This is not some guy she secretly messages on the side. It's somebody we've talked to regularly for years. I've talked to him a few times since I've learned about my wife. He said he didn't know we were dating at the time and has since blocked my wife on social media. Some folks have asked how the roommates didn't realize at our wedding that the timelines didn't work out. The main reason is that my wife and I had a very small ceremony with just close family in Texas, then went back to the East Coast to have a big party with friends. The typical reception/sharing details about how we met stuff didn't really happen, so her roommates didn't realize we started dating before college. It sounds like they thought we only dated for the year we were both in the same city then moved in together. I was open to therapy or some kind of attempt to save the marriage, but her insistence that this whole thing is common and I'm the one who's out of line is just too much for me. The only time she showed any remorse or even offered to reconcile was when I started filing paperwork. In the last week, she's gone back to saying she's right and I'm overreacting. This is also why I feel like I'm being gaslit. It seems obvious that this is a major issue, but I've got my wife and others telling me it's normal and I'm overreacting. I'm not getting a paternity test unless my kids want to get one. I don't have any doubts that they are biologically mine, and no test will make them not my kids. I love them more than anything in the world, and my wife's infidelity won't change that. Even if one or both of them are not biologically mine, they've been my kids for 19 years, and they will be my kids until I stop breathing. Edit 2. Hey all, I've been reading a bunch of the responses, but things are getting crazy and increasingly unhinged, so I probably won't be checking in more. Here are a few more answers to common questions I've seen. We were definitely exclusively dating at the time. First, dating culture was a lot different 20-ish years ago, and exclusive was the default for most people. Second, we had a long and difficult discussion before she left for college about continuing the relationship long distance. She specifically wanted to stay together and even joked about her dad coming after me if I started sleeping around with girls at my school. For my senior prom, she was not able to attend and was very upset when I proposed going with a platonic female friend of mine. As a result, I ended up skipping my prom and hanging out with her instead. While we never said the word exclusive, I think the above reasons combined with the general relationship before she left are enough to assume exclusivity. Based on some comments here, I followed up with a friend who said I should have an honest conversation. She told me that 10 guys would be on the low end and that her biggest concern was that there was apparently at least one pregnancy scare that I didn't know about. I honestly don't think that really changes much. It's less about the number for me and more about the fact that she seems incapable of recognizing why this was wrong or why I feel betrayed. Thank you all for the helpful responses, even those that disagree with me. I will still be open to therapy if she's willing, but I honestly feel like it would be more about being successful co-parents and finding closure than saving our marriage. Update. First, let's talk about the things I learned about the situation in college after talking to my wife in sessions and texting with 2 of her roommates. It's clear that her roommates knew something was up in college. They said they thought the situation was weird and likely involved cheating. My wife had told them that we both had some wild times in college and worked it out before we got married, so they never really brought it up. The roommate who pulled me aside recently was uncomfortable with the fact that my wife clearly didn't talk it through with me and wanted me to know. As far as being introduced to guys she slept with, apparently that was not intended for one of the guys. He ended up dating and then marrying one of our mutual friends from college. This is the guy she was in contact with. In the other situations, she initially blamed me in the counseling session but has now agreed it was bad. When I went to visit her, she planned to hang out in the room or just hang out together alone, but I wanted to go to a few parties because I didn't really have parties to go to in high school and community college. She didn't expect me to meet the guys, but they were at the parties, and she felt she didn't really have a choice. I still think this is kind of shitty, but it's not as bad as her intentionally parading me in front of the guys. Most of our discussion in therapy has been talking about why I think it's a big deal and she doesn't. She initially said that none of these guys were in relationships with her and it was mostly one-night stands or FWB. Since she didn't view them as romantic relationships, she didn't see the big deal. Her words, not mine. My opinion is that we never said that was okay, and she actively prevented me from doing the same. After digging into this over 2 sessions and my wife talking to some friends, she now agrees that it was a breach of our trust/relationship. This shared understanding has helped us talk about this situation more honestly and move from arguing to talking, which is why I'm optimistic about co-parenting. Now, here's why I'm 100% set on divorce. 2 things came up that made me want to leave the marriage. First, about 10 years ago, we went through a really rough patch and had a dead bedroom for about 2 years. She had expressed that our sex life was becoming boring, so I tried to spice things up. Nothing crazy, just roleplay and Spencer's gift-level sex toys. Apparently, she had been hung up on some sexual experiences that happened in college that she is not comfortable talking about and wanted me to try them. When I did, it made her feel awkward and guilty, and it made her think of other men while she was with me. The fact that she's saying these experiences were meaningless but they're still impacting our marriage tells me they meant more than she wants to admit. Second, she admitted that she has been flirting with coworkers on business trips since the pandemic ended. She says she has never slept with anybody, but it got as far as going on a date with one of her male coworkers. That was the absolute deal-breaker for me. We have told our children that we're getting a divorce. We told them it was due to some bad decisions that we made in college that we're having trouble moving past. My 19-year-old who is in college asked me if I cheated on my wife while she was away at college. My wife got a little shaken up but admitted to the kids that she was the one who cheated. We have agreed not to share any additional details with the kids. I reinforced that both of us would be there for the kids and that we would be in therapy to help make sure we handled this in the best way for the family. I also told the kids that if they wanted to talk to either of us or a therapist about it, I would fully support it. We've started talking to a mediator about how to proceed with the divorce, and unless things change, we should be able to have an amicable divorce. We're both financially stable on our own, we have no major debts, and our kids are older, so custody isn't a major issue. This has been a shitty couple of months for me, but I'm doing okay now, and I honestly am grateful that my last post blew up because it both validated some of my feelings but also motivated me to go to counseling with my wife. Edit. A couple of things to add in response to comments. I know she probably cheated more than she has admitted. Once our dead bedroom situation from years ago and a date with a coworker came up, I accepted that this has probably been going on at some level for our whole marriage. I'm not glossing over that because I'm an idiot who believes she's telling the whole truth. I have enough truth to know this is the right decision and that it was more than just college. Adding more detail won't change anything. In this post, the last post, and in many messages, a lot of messages people keep asking if a hall pass would help fix things. It won't. I don't believe that more cheating will solve the trust issues. That may have worked for other people, but I really don't think that's going to help us. I told my STBX and our counselor about the Reddit posts. I was upfront with both of them about it. I've kept this anonymous enough that I doubt anybody would guess who I really am, and this has helped me process things. In all honesty, seeing both sides of the issue has helped me, and reading the comments on the last post helped my wife better understand some of the frustration and hurt I feel. I don't necessarily believe sharing all these details on Reddit is the healthiest way to handle a situation, but I don't have many close friends I can share with who aren't also mutual friends with my wife, so this is kind of a way to talk through it. Now on to the next story. Story 4. I let my deceased partner's parents see my daughter out of kindness, but now they're trying to steal her from me, claiming in court that I'm an unfit mom because I got a new boyfriend. I, 30F, am the single mother of Clara, 2F. My pregnancy wasn't planned. I had a no-strings-attached relationship with her father, Jack, 30SM. for 7 months when I became pregnant unexpectedly. He lived in another state but would visit my city monthly for business reasons, and we hit it off after meeting in a bar. We thought about our options regarding the pregnancy, but I decided to keep the baby. Jack wanted to be part of her life, so we planned to raise the baby together, but not as a couple, just co-parents. Unfortunately, Jack passed away during my pregnancy. Jack's parents, Linda and James, knew that I was pregnant when he passed. We had already done a prenatal paternity test. At the time, we were all devastated by his passing, but of course, his parents were destroyed by it. Clara is their first and only grandkid, and she became their beacon of light in a dark time, as they say. They have 2 other daughters, Ruth, 37F, and Lily, 27F, but they don't have children. Ruth has been trying to conceive for a long time with her husband, and Lily is child-free and single. Jack's whole family lives in another state with the exception of Lily, who lives abroad. They have a family business, so their life is there, while I have my family and career in my current city, where I live with Clara. Since Clara was born, we have an agreement, nothing legal, but we all agreed to visitations for her grandparents and aunts. They usually visit Clara twice a month. James and Linda are the ones that visit the most, but Ruth also shows up sometimes. I really appreciate their presence in her life since the beginning. A point of contention in our relationship was traveling with Clara to their state. They have a big property that has been in their family for over 100 years and have a family business in their small town. They are treated as almost royalty and wanted Clara to experience that. I understand that it's good for my daughter to know her heritage, but I always put my foot down on the idea of them traveling with her without me. I've visited their hometown 3 times with Clara since she was born, but this isn't enough, apparently. Our relationship wasn't perfect. I had some issues with Linda meddling way too much in my parenting, but we were civil until I started my current relationship. I've been dating Ted, 34M, for almost a year, and things are tense with James and Linda. Ted and I don't live together, and he has a daughter, Marie, for F, that lives with him. Linda has expressed disapproval of his constant presence in my house, which is not true. Both of us work a lot, and between our kids and other priorities, we probably see each other 3 to 4 times a week, to Marie having playdates and sleepovers with Clara, and the list goes on. The woman will find a way to comment on something, even about Ted's car parked in front of my house. Things escalated when, 2 weeks ago, I emailed Linda, James, and Ruth an invite for Christmas Eve. Ted and I were having a get-together with our families and close friends. I decided to invite Clara's grandparents so they could spend Christmas Eve with her, but I also let them know that if they prefer, they can take her for lunch on Christmas Day. The next day, Linda texted me that they already had plans to take Clara to their home on Christmas. I said that this was not happening. I didn't hear anything from her for about 2 days. Linda called me, stating that she gave me 2 days to cool off and be reasonable. I asked what she meant, and she said they have rights over Clara and they had waited too much to take her home for Christmas now that she is bigger and can travel without me. I said that this was never discussed and I will not let them travel with my daughter without even discussing it with me before. Linda said this was the discussion before the travel. I laughed on the call and said she was delusional. Things escalated quickly after that. I was accused of trying to replace Jack in Clara's life. I also said some things that were a little cruel about Jack never even meeting Clara. After Linda hung up on me, James called and tried to reason with me. He let it slip that they bought Clara's plane tickets 2 months ago without asking me first. I said there was no way I would let them walk all over me. James lost his temper and demanded that I should apologize to Linda, or we will go to court over this. I didn't back down and said they were choosing to fight over this, not me. Well, after some time of silence from them, I was served with court papers. They are suing me over custody of Clara and are stating I am unfit as a mother. I already have a lawyer whom I consulted before our fight over the phone. She told me yesterday they have almost 0 chance of getting any custody. The most they can get is visitation, but I am still worried about this becoming a legal battle. People in my life are divided. Part of them think I did nothing wrong by putting up boundaries, and others think it's petty of me to start a fight with my daughter's grandparents when I could let them travel with her for Christmas when I know they are good grandparents and will take care of her. A few clarifications are needed. 1. How Linda and James know details about my life. They do live in another state, but they visit often, at least twice a month. They come to see Clara, and they come to my house to pick her up and to leave her after their outings. This is how Linda realized Ted's car was in front of my driveway, since I live in a gated community and this type of parking is forbidden unless it's the homeowner's car. The first time she saw his car, Linda asked if I would call security to tow the car, and I said no because it was Ted's car. They also used to FaceTime Clara 3 times a week. That's how they learned about some of her playdates and sleepovers with Marie. They called when Marie was still at the house with Clara and saw her. 2. They expected my toddler to travel alone on a plane. No, I think I couldn't explain well enough. James said they would travel to my city, take Clara with them on the plane to their state, and after a week they would bring her back. She was never supposed to travel alone for what they were planning. 3. Do I believe they were going to kidnap my daughter? I don't know. I think it's possible. Some comments made me paranoid, to be honest. James said they bought her tickets back, but I don't think I should trust him without proof. Their word means nothing now. 4. Do I still have contact with them? No. My lawyer advised me to cut all visits and video calls with Clara and only communicate with my daughter's grandparents through our lawyers. They are not blocked on my phone, but I will not receive any calls from them. If they text or email me, I'll have it sent to my lawyer. Trust me. Today was all about making an FU binder and documenting every little thing. Thank you a lot for the advice, guys, and don't worry much. Clara and I live in a very secure community with cameras and armed security. Nobody will take her from me. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1, NTA. They bought plane tickets 2 months ago without asking you? That's not planning ahead. That's delusional travel agency energy. You are Clara's mom and not some vacation rental they can book on Airbnb. OP. Exactly. That's what pissed me off the most. Who does that with someone else's child? They act like Clara is their child, not mine. Comment 2. If I were you, I would get the most aggressive, underhanded lawyer I could find to drag their names through the mud. You cannot trust your child with them. They do not respect you. They are selfish and unreasonable bullies. Fight fire with fire. NTA. OP. My lawyer is a very fierce lady with almost 20 years of experience in family law. My sister is a lawyer and was her student in college. She immediately said I should phone her former teacher, and I did. Comment 3, NTA. This is your child. They have no right to demand anything, and you were kind enough to include them in your life at all. Do you have a security system at your house? I would be worried about them showing up. OP. I have a very good security system in my home. My dad made sure to supervise the installation when I moved to my house while pregnant. There's no way they will show up without being recorded. Comment 4, NTA. You have been more than kind in fostering a relationship with them. I am positive that they will not get custody, but I am curious about grandparents' rights. Is that a thing in your country/state? If it is, I would fight to make sure all of the visits are near you. It would look bad for them to take her and try to keep her away from you, but they have already proven to be shady and underhanded. OP. According to my lawyer, since Jack is dead, they have grandparents' rights here in my country, but only visitation and only in the same city the child lives. She thinks there's no way they'll have custody, so this could make them have less access to her than before. OP clarifies details regarding the inheritance Clara has in her country. After Jack's passing, her inheritance is already secured and received. She inherited 50% of her father's assets and will receive his share when her grandparents pass away. It's the law here. If you die without being married or having a common law partner, you have to live at least 6 months with someone to be considered a legal partner. 50% goes to any children you have and 50% goes to your parents. In case your parents aren't alive, 100% will go to your children. The other way around, if you are childless, 100% will go to your parents if they are alive. There's no need for an executor for her to receive the inheritance, but I did put her assets in an investment trust to avoid issues in the future or accusations that I used all of her money. Update, February 11th, 2025. Hey, I posted my story here some months ago and was surprised about how this blew up fast. Not only on Reddit but also on other apps. I was not sure if I should post an update since I was fearing being doxxed, and also because I received a ton of hate through messages and people reposting my story, bullying me and wishing for me to lose my daughter's custody. About the possibility of doxing, I talked to my lawyer and showed her my post, and she said that I could update if I keep the fake names and don't give up on personal details. Until now, nobody in my life has discovered my post, which makes sense since English isn't our country's first language. Having said that, I'd like to also preface that my grammar and writing skills in English aren't the best since this is my second language. But I was truly appalled about how many people attacked me for it. Some people said that I must be an alcoholic to commit as many grammar mistakes, and that I deserve to lose my daughter for being a drunk, which is not true. I don't drink. I know the internet can be toxic, but some people are willing to go too far to bully others. This is very low. I just hope everyone that criticized my writing skills has better knowledge than I have while learning another language. When you guys start to speak or write in a second language, I hope you don't meet someone like yourselves who will bully you for not writing in the proper way when it's not even your mother language. More than 2 months have passed, and a lot has happened since. My life was really chaotic for some weeks, and I felt that I couldn't celebrate Christmas the way I truly wanted because I was constantly worried about the custody lawsuit. I am relieved to say now that this is over. Also, to the ones worried about Clara, I thank you guys for being so gentle. To be honest, I think more people were nice and gentle than bullies, so I am truly thankful for your well wishes from the bottom of my heart. Clara is healthy and happy. Luckily, nobody tried anything to take her from me. I know a lot of you said they could try to kidnap her. I'm still worried about it, but nothing has happened. After I made my post, I spent several days working with my lawyer, my family, and even with the home security company I hired to ensure that Clara was safe, all my security cameras were working, and that I had all the documentation needed for court. My lawyer and I prepared tons of documentation about me and Clara, and even got the backlogs of visitation in my gated community that proves that Ted has never spent the night here. My family was very aware of my fears of kidnapping, and they made sure to always be around us. I have to thank you guys for the incredible advice I got. I don't want to put too much weight on talking about haters because 90% of comments and messages were truly nice and caring. I tried my best to listen to my lawyer and many things you guys said we could do to ensure our safety. Not only that, but I talked to Clara's pediatrician, pediatric dentist, swimming teacher, and even my parents' church where Clara sometimes goes to the kids' classes. They are all aware of the lawsuit and that nobody should give up information about Clara or me under any circumstances. They are all on the same page and are giving us support and being understanding. Some people also advised me to speak to Clara's aunts to know if they were aware of the lawsuit and the possibility that their parents could try to take my daughter. I was not sure about how to do this. My lawyer said that I could try to communicate with them, but all via text or email. Before I could do this, Lily, Jack's younger sister that lives in Europe, texted me to ask if I had received Clara's Christmas gifts she sent through the mail. I saw this as an opportunity and wrote a text explaining what was happening with her parents. Lily said she had no idea about the lawsuit or that they wanted to take Clara for Christmas and fly with her on a plane. She said that she would speak with Ruth and ask her about this since Ruth, at the time, was very distant from their family group chat. A day later, Lily and Ruth created a group chat to talk to me. They asked to have a video call with me. I said I had to talk to my lawyer first. My lawyer agreed to me doing the call if they let me record it to make sure nothing would be used against me. Both agreed, and we had a video call that was enlightening to me. Ruth apologized to me for being absent from our lives over the last months. She was dealing with many personal issues but had happy news to share. Ruth went through her third IVF round, and as of now, she is around 22 weeks pregnant with her first child. She kept everything quiet. Just Ruth and her husband, Sam, knew about the IVF proceedings and the pregnancy. She said this was because Linda used to put too much pressure and stress over her the other times they tried IVF. Ruth was distancing herself from things that raised her anxiety levels, and her mom was a main source of anxiety. Her pregnancy is good news but didn't surprise me since I knew she was trying for a baby. I'm happy she finally was able to conceive. Here I have to explain that Linda is what people call a boy mom. She never got along with her daughters. I had an inkling about that, but since I was not close to them, I had no idea about how bad her relationship with her daughters was. They just seemed distant, and James was closer to their daughters. Ruth swore that she didn't know about the lawsuit until Lily called her the day before. After this, she talked to her dad and to his best friend, who's a lawyer, to understand what was going on. She was surprised that James's friend didn't know anything about the lawsuit since he is usually the lawyer representing him. James, on the other way, tried to divert the subject when Ruth asked, but she pressured him and eventually he folded and told her everything. James claims that he didn't want to sue me, but Linda's mental health has deteriorated to a point that he feared for her well-being. The only thing that could make her get out of bed is Clara and the thought of having her around. He ignored that this makes Linda the one who's not fit to raise a child, not me. His plan was to pressure me with the lawsuit in order to make me accept a better deal of visitation for them. They wanted more days with her and to be able to travel with her to their home multiple times a year. James never said that they wanted to keep her forever, but I am not trusting his words. My trust is shattered. Ruth and Sam tore James a new one for suing me over custody to manipulate me and for not forcing Linda to go to therapy. He claimed Linda doesn't accept the idea of going to see a therapist as she is not crazy, and said that she would not go under any circumstance. Ruth had to threaten James that if he didn't withdraw the lawsuit and get the help Linda and he needed, she would go no contact and resign from the family business. She was very worried about the idea of them doing the same to Sam in case she dies and their child is left with her husband. James kind of broke after this and caved to Ruth's demands. After my call with Ruth and Lily, I was under the knowledge that the lawsuit would be terminated. Unfortunately, in my country, from the 20th of December until the 20th of January, the courts are on break. They only deal with emergency cases. Mine wasn't. Their lawyer reached out to mine to talk about the end of the lawsuit and about writing a visitation agreement that the family court would approve. We agreed to work on this, but I would only sign any visitation agreement after they had withdrawn their lawsuit for custody and only if they agreed to follow my rules. For what I know, after being pressured by her whole family, Linda eventually accepted to start therapy, and she is seeing a psychiatrist and a therapist. She was diagnosed with depression and PTSD related to Jack's death. I know this because my lawyer demanded that her doctors had to put an evaluation of Linda's mental state in order on our legal agreement for me to accept a visitation deal with Clara's grandparents. I never said here, but Jack's death was sudden and violent. He was a victim of a robbery gone wrong. All of us were shocked about his passing, but Linda and James took the brunt of it. I always felt that they didn't mourn enough since they switched their attention to my pregnancy a few weeks after his passing, and I was right to think that. In our visitation agreement, I also demanded that both James and Linda have to go through grief counseling, to which they agreed to a number of sessions. Me, James, and Linda are attending virtual family therapy for the first months of our agreement to make sure we are in a healthy space to deal with our relationship and put Clara's well-being first. Regarding this, I have nothing to complain about. They accepted my terms pretty easily. They did try to fight against the idea of supervised visitation, but I had no reason to accept otherwise. Now they will visit Clara twice a month in a family center in my city. This is something my country has, a public building where things related to custody of minors and family problems regarding custody are handled. They have very good security there. Those visits will be supervised by a social worker who was assigned our case by the judge that signed our visitation agreement. About my fears of kidnapping, I have to say I didn't feel validated by my country's laws. Basically, me and my lawyer went to a police station, and we did an occurrence about the possible kidnapping. They didn't seem to take this seriously, and as of now, they will not press charges. At least there's paperwork regarding my fears. James ended up sending my lawyer Clara's plane tickets to prove they bought her 2 tickets and were not planning on staying with her. Since they have money, I don't think it would be hard for them to buy a ticket back, knowing they will not use it, so I am still not trusting or believing them. I don't have plans of letting them visit Clara without supervision. Even her aunts know that to see Clara, they will have supervision, too. Everyone is accepting this right now, and the visits have started a couple of weeks ago. Let's see what happens in the future. I also don't intend on traveling to their state or city in the near future. I am truly scared about the chances of them using their power to take my daughter, so I will not make it easier for them. Thank you again for the help and well wishes. As of now, Clara and her mama bear are doing well and enjoying a couple of days I took off to spend quality time together and finally celebrate since our Christmas was very stressful. Now on to the next story. Story 5. My husband had an emotional affair with his coworker and moved in with her. Now she's pregnant, he's broke, and he's using our daughter to get back at me. I'm 38F and my husband is 38M. We've been married since 2009 and we have a preteen daughter. The last 3 years have been really tough on us because of my husband's bad working conditions that started to affect his mental health. I noticed signs of burnout and depression and brought up these concerns regularly to him. He was very dismissive, refused to see his situation, and refused therapy. He started becoming distant and often isolated himself, and was regularly butting heads with our daughter. He eventually told me that he had met a woman at work. Their relationship was, according to him, not physical, but he was in love with her and felt that she was his soulmate and best friend. He said he was very sorry and that he could not decide which woman he would ultimately be happiest with. He spoke out about this at home whilst I was having the toughest time of my life. I cried alone over my dreams and plans, everything we had together. He also told me that in order to clear his head, he would need to leave the house and spend some time on his own. That coworker had offered him her spare room and he was going to take it. I asked for his help organizing the rest of the school year as I was commuting, and I promised him that as soon as the school year was over, I would look for an apartment closer to my work and my daughter and I would move out, and he could have the house to himself for his healing. I found an apartment almost immediately and we moved. He visited us one weekend a month and brought his chaos with him every time. The new home had become a safe haven that we cherished, and he took it over as soon as he appeared. Felt like I wasn't breathing until he finally left. After 6 months of living like this, I decided I had given things enough time to mend and they had not. I was still hurt and bitter and he was still coy about what was going on and what his ultimate decision really was. I told him I was done living like this and that I wanted a divorce. He absolutely lost his and left, and drove back to our old house in the middle of the night just to get away from me. A week later, he told me the coworker is pregnant and he was angry that I didn't want to even try to fix our marriage. Since then, he has gotten increasingly more hostile and accusatory in his communication with me. He blames me for breaking up the marriage and abandoning him during his crisis. He says he was not himself and has no idea why he did the things he did, but that I was the one who left. He claims I was no help when he needed me and that I had clearly mentally abandoned our relationship long before, more than 3 years prior. He tells me I'm cold and calculating and clearly not the person he thought I was. I understand that he is not well. He finally did go to therapy. I explained a lot of his actions with that in mind at first. He claims I have been taking his daughter away and leaving. Update 1. Hello. I've been reading all the comments on the original post and tried to answer as many of the questions as I could. I wanted to write an update since my post seemed to raise some questions and also to thank you for your engagement on the post. It has meant a lot to me. You have given me good advice, some really good things to think about, and some tough love and criticism I surely needed. Thank you so much. The divorce is in process and I have not seen him in person for some 4 months at this point. He mostly keeps radio silence until it seems he has to unload some hurt on me. I've kept my contact with him to a minimum, only ever messaging him on things regarding our daughter or requesting him to react to official paperwork or to his electricity bills that I've transferred to him. Due to the circumstances in which we started this separation originally, I paid most of his living expenses mainly since I have a steady job and get paid double his salary. He is still very much incapacitated by his mental health issues and I wanted to alleviate some of the practical matters for him. Now that we are pulling everything apart, he has been maybe purposefully making this into a very slow and frustrating process. Currently, I still pay for his electricity and he reimburses those bills for me at the end of each month. Sometimes he needs encouraging. Usually this leads to him messaging me all day. Usually complaints on how I'm now raising our daughter now that I have made him obsolete. His words. Telling me to get a new dad to help me with the job as soon as possible. He seems to try very hard to push my buttons by saying things like, "It must be very hard for you to send your daughter to someone who you loathe and hate so much. If I make the mistake of losing my temper, even for one curse word, he will turn immediately and tells me to calm down, stop spitting acid, and Maybe we should continue our discussion when I'm not so wound up. I have mainly chosen to not engage in these conversations when they start going off the rails. I have all of his outbursts in writing. I'm also currently under the impression that the coworker is not interested in a relationship with him anymore, and all of those who asked, yes, the baby is his by his own word. He still has not told our daughter about any of it. I have chosen to give him an ultimatum on the matter. I will bring it up one more time when we have our official meeting with our child welfare officer next month. That's the official route where we live, and if he still refuses, I will take it to myself to tell our daughter the truth. So many of you have encouraged me to do this for her sake and for the sake of our relationship, and I thank you for sharing your experiences with me. I have also contacted her school therapist and the curator and informed them of the issues she is facing now and the ones still to come. I'm hoping they will offer her some scheduled help, since I know she is shy on telling me everything. She is the most important thing in my life, and as sorry as I am for her having to go through this, essentially because of my choices, I refuse to take all the blame now and I'm ready to shift it where it belongs. Personally, I'm a much happier person these days. I feel bursts of gratefulness and true happiness these days just by watching her eat her dinner and talk to me about her day at the dinner table in our clean and peaceful home. Even my houseplants are thriving, as silly as it sounds. I have finally opened up about all of this to some of my friends and my siblings, and they have all been super supportive. My siblings were clearly shocked, but both did bring up that they are somehow not surprised it all went this way. They seem to have seen things a bit more clearly from afar, just like this community did. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I feel like my daughter and me are going to be just fine in the end. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. I actually laughed out loud at the part where he told OP his AP was pregnant, but he can't believe OP doesn't want to fix the marriage in the same breath. Like, buddy, do you hear yourself? OP. Honestly, at that point I had already made up my mind. When I sat there and listened to his rant, I got the feeling that so much more was to come. When he finally told me about the pregnancy, I nearly laughed out loud myself. It was so absurd that it felt like the whole drama had been turned into a farce, like people would never believe me if I told the whole story. With that reaction, I realized that I really was mentally in a better place, one foot out the door and not ever going back. This was not my show to deal with anymore. Comment 2. Stop paying the electricity bill. Stop being sympathetic or empathetic with him. Do not engage. You need to do this for yourself. You owe that to yourself. OP. My friends have also told me to just drop the electricity contract for my plan and have him figure it out. Logically, I know it takes one call for him to make a new contract. He gives me excuses I know are false, but since I also know how passive his mental health issues have made him and how insurmountable small things can become, I find it so difficult to do this and go back on my word. There is also the fear how making our currently bad relationship even worse will inevitably reflect on our daughter and getting through all the legalities. I can't wait until it's all done and dusted. Update 2. Hello Reddit. It has been months since my original post and update. People were very nice to me and offered me really good advice and lots of emotional support and needed criticism. I took a lot of it to heart and made good progress for my daughter and myself. I finally separated the rest of our finances, stopped paying his bills, and made official agreements on child support and custody, which remained shared for now as he went back on his word to give it to me uncontested. He did not agree to sign an official visitation agreement because he cannot commit to it right now. I offered him every other weekend and half of all holidays. He has started to meet our daughter more often, though, since nowadays she actually visits him on her own free will. It seems that their relationship has gotten a bit better lately, which I'm of course happy about. He has been absolutely terrible towards me, though. He started a campaign of passive-aggressive texting after I asked him to be civil. Now every message is overly syrupy and filled with overflowing apology. I ignored this until he decided to talk to me face-to-face when we went to sign the agreements. He told me his therapist told him to talk to me for closure and speak his mind, so he did. He once again just explained to me how hard the last year has been and how I tore the marriage apart. How he was not ready to accept this divorce and never will be. How nothing in his current life is what he wanted or asked for, and considers it an insult if I congratulated him over the upcoming baby, etc. This felt really off, considering he just had moved in with her. affair partner. He originally tried to hide this too and was evasive, but of course our daughter found out the next time she visited and also told me. I know it is pointless, but I felt I needed to say something too. So I told him that he completely continues to ignore all my pain and the mental work I had to do over this whole thing, and I can't help the fact that my love died in the process. He says I didn't even try. He said even my parents were more supportive of him because they had exchanged pleasantries, having met briefly a few weeks prior. His coworkers were more supportive than me. I told him to look in the mirror and that his little passive-aggressive game was so obvious. Clearly it hit home because he stopped immediately after. He has also been snooping over my dating life through our daughter and is very jealous, says so, and gets very verbally aggressive over it. Now, the thing that brought me back to you here tonight is that despite my life having turned so much better in the last few months and me and my daughter have been happier than in a long while, I fell into an unexpected hole today. He was supposed to have her over this weekend, but ended up canceling. The reason he gave me was different than what he gave our daughter, so I knew he lied to someone. Yesterday he blew up on me over texts that originally started as a discussion over our daughter's visits. He started the same old song of me being so petty over such a minor thing as his affair that was apparently not even a real affair. At first, he wrote that my parents were right about me being too sensitive. He knows how low of a blow this is since he has been supporting me through my issues with my parents and validating all of my gripes my whole life with, "You are too sensitive." I told him how low that was and that he does not get to quantify my pain, and he totally lost his marbles to the point where I had to stop reading his messages because I was afraid I would start to cry in the office this morning. Our daughter runs to me crying happy tears and jumping of joy. Her father had sent her pictures of the newly born little sister. I congratulated the new official older sister and we gushed over the pictures a little. Throughout the day, my mood has just been awful. I've gotten messages from my family asking how I am because daughter of course told everyone, which is totally okay. But it's starting to weigh on me. I have been tired and easily irritated all of a sudden. I felt like I had no one to talk to, no one who would really understand, someone unbiased and adult to talk to. Those have been my hardest moments in all of this. I lost my best friend when we fell apart, and whenever I feel like I really need to open up and spill my heart, it reminds me of how alone I feel. Is it a normal reaction? I've been fine and very emotionally cut off from him for so long, and somehow the birth of this baby sent me into this sudden nosedive today. I felt like I needed to tell all of this in my lowest point in a long while. So thank you for reading. Update 3. New update. Hello, dear Redditors. Love, it's been a while since I posted an update, but since some people have reached out to me still, I thought I'd make one. Honestly, at this point, I feel the title no longer fits as I have realized my error, but I will keep it for clarity's sake. First of all, to everyone who offered help and advice or just reached out to give a virtual hug, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. You can find my original post and updates from my profile. They are my only posts. I remember the last time I posted, I was feeling a sudden setback due to my daughter's little sister being born. My girl has been so happy over her and loves her dearly. I really hope the sisters get to keep their relationship no matter what happens with their dad. Most of my personal life is going great. I finally managed to save enough to buy us an apartment and have been busy renovating it. My work life is great. I really love my job and I got a promotion which really helped on the house hunt. And for my siblings and friends, they have truly saved me and my mental health during this journey. I'm very happy where I am in life and have no real drive to find a partner. Sometimes I do feel that I may be a bit too jaded and harsh still when it comes to love. I don't like that, but I guess it too will heal over time. All this hurts my ex, as I get to hear after he hears from these things from our daughter. He wrote to me that it feels like he was dragging me back and his absence has now allowed me to thrive. My ex-husband is not doing well, of course. All I hear of him is what he tells me and what my daughter tells me in passing. We had to make a new child support agreement as the one we made originally had a fixed period. In that hearing, I got to hear a lot about his current state of affairs, and I have to say, the new woman of the house is not playing around. She has made him pay all utilities and groceries and all miscellaneous household fixes, whilst she just pays her home loan. I was impressed. He did complain during the hearing that he barely has money for gynotherapy as it is, and when it turned out that the child support had been miscalculated last time state paid for him, he went into total despair over the amounts. He started messaging me right after the hearing and implied he no longer has money for therapy, and that I should know that he is the only breadwinner in the house, and that he will not be able to have her daughter over so much now since she eats like a horse, and he can't afford it. I reminded him she eats on the 26 other days of the month too, not just the 2 weekends she spends with him. This summer he agreed to have her over for a few weeks during his holiday because I agreed he wouldn't have to pay child support for that month. The situation is sad and it's not getting better. The last straw for me came a few weeks ago when she was spending time at his place. He had already picked a fight a few days prior, but I had refused to engage. So he stormed out, meaning he left my last message unread for 3 days. The silent treatment I used to get when we were still together was exactly like this too. He clearly had been building up steam during those days and then all of a sudden blew up my phone with message after message telling me how bad I was at this, meaning arguing, I assumed, and twisting everything I had said into a version that made me look like a total a-hole. I once again refused to engage and told him that this no longer concerns me and he should find someone else to argue with. That angered him so that he swapped tactic and told me that he had shown our daughter these messages to prove that I am not so nice I pretend to be. That got me from zero to furious in an instant, though not for the reasons he implied. I told him that this was hands down the most selfish thing he could have done, and that this is his daughter he is damaging with this behavior. I told him I'm absolutely done with him, and I will not be in contact with him anymore apart from issues directly related to our daughter and her matters. He then totally swapped personality, it felt like, and started with these really whiny, self-pitying, "Why are you being so mean to me?" messages that he then topped with, "I still love you," and other weird. I was no longer answering. So the last message he sent was to say that he in fact had not shown her any of my messages and that my sanctity was intact. I went to pick up my daughter the next day, as I felt really uneasy and really needed to personally be there, and maybe I could get her to talk to me during the car ride if he had been talking his truths again. As we took a pit stop and had some ice cream, she quietly asked me to, "Please don't take me away from Dad." My heart absolutely broke. I asked her why would she think that, and she revealed to me that my ex-husband had told her about our custody disagreements in the form of, "Mommy wants full custody." I explained to her that even if I had full custody, it would not take visitation if it was deemed to be good for her. She said she wanted her dad to be there for her school graduation, and I said her father has all the rights in the world to be at the school event and all she needed to do was to make sure she invited him. And I know this will now work in my favor and not his. I have invited him to her birthday parties too, and he never comes. I haven't told her this now. I made sure that she knows I'm not against any of this, and by making sure she invites him, he can now make his excuses directly to her. Part of me hates having to be in this war at all, but I feel like he leaves me no choice. A few days later, she asked me why I am so mean to Daddy. I asked her why does she think that, and she revealed that Dad had shown her some of my messages. So, yes, his last message to me was once again a lie. Now, as many of you have been warning me, this is parental alienation and downright mental abuse on her. I called the local CPS to ask for advice on how to proceed and if I should file a complaint on him and what would follow. My daughter has already been seeing the school counselor, and as she is now started in a new school, I will be seeking the same help from there too for them to evaluate and refer her to therapy. I was told by the CPS worker that this will be documented and that I should weigh now the possible consequences. They are totally for me filing an official complaint, but as we have shared custody, what will follow is a session for both parties individually for a discussion and then evaluation on the severity of the situation. The CPS worker said that 2 things can happen. He takes it to heart because someone else brings it up, or he gets mad and makes our already strained communication even worse and possibly retaliates. Knowing him, it's the latter. They also told me that if I get more evidence on him manipulating our daughter, then I should just file anyway. Like I have mentioned before, all our communication is in writing and I have saved all of it. So I'm currently torn between trying to figure out what kind of damage my poor daughter will have. The trauma of being cut from her father and little sister, or the trauma of being mentally manipulated against another parent and being used as ammunition in a war that is not her making. Whichever it will be, I know she will blame me, and that probably is my just punishment too. I failed to protect her. And to those who say I should not protect my ex and just tell her everything, It's not him I've been trying to protect but her. She should not be in this situation, but I admit due to his actions, here we are now anyway. He mocked me for being so naive that I really thought amicable co-parenting was stuff that people can do. Well, I sure as can't do it alone, and children are very perceptive. She knows her father got another woman pregnant, as she puts it, but she is also being fed this weird narrative by her dad where I clocked out of that marriage years ago and was just pretending, and all he needed was a hug, but I turned my back on him and abandoned him like I abandoned my parents because I just couldn't get over it like everybody else on this planet could. All his words from his rant messages, and she just talked to me still, so I can verify he does really tell these things to her. So here we are. The good, the bad, and the bats hit insane. All I hope is that I can make the right decision for my daughter and that she could grow to be a healthy and happy adult. If that requires her to come to me one day and ask for me to justify the things I did and said, then I'm happy to have that conversation with her. Thank you everyone for your messages, support, and criticism. Now on to the next story. Story 6. When I, 20 now, was 8 years old, my parents decided that they were done with me and sent me to live with my aunt. Even before I turned 8, I knew for a fact that my parents did not really like living with me and I was mostly just a burden to them. They had me when they were really young, in their early 20s, and they had just started working at the time. As I was growing up, I really watched them struggle to build a life for themselves while raising me. I guess that's why they always resented me, but I only came to that conclusion recently. I didn't have any idea why they seemed to dislike me so much back when I was little. I spent most of those 8 years trying to win them over, but nothing ever worked. I was always emotionally neglected. However, whenever we were among friends and family, they would act quite differently, probably because they couldn't risk anybody getting to know that things were not as great as they seemed. They would intimidate me to keep my mouth shut as well, so I would do so because I did not want to risk making them hate me even more than they already did. This went on for many years, and obviously my emotional and mental health deteriorated. I started doing pretty badly at school and even acted out frequently. I was a bit of a problem child, and I don't really blame myself for any of it. I think if my parents had treated me well, I wouldn't have behaved like that. They scolded me, grounded me, and did everything possible to bring me under control when the teachers from my school started complaining about my behavior and grades. But I was determined to misbehave even more, because at least this way I would get them to pay attention to me, if not by trying to win them over. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for me, this plan of mine backfired when my mom got pregnant for a second time around the time of my 8th birthday. For the first time in forever, they seemed really happy and made the announcement at my 8th birthday party. I was really confused about what that meant for me, but I found out in a couple of weeks when I saw my mother packing my bags. My dad sat me down and told me that I was being sent away to live with my aunt because I was clearly not doing well here, and they wanted the best for me. I was young, but I was not stupid, and I knew for a fact that they were just getting rid of me because now that they were getting another baby, they were going to replace me. I was very upset about that, naturally, and I started throwing tantrums because I really did not want to be sent away from everything that I knew. My home, my friends, and all of that. If I'm being honest, I didn't even want to be sent away from my parents because no matter how they treated me, at least they were still my parents. But my parents really couldn't care less about me throwing tantrums. They decided to ship me off to my aunt's place anyway. She lived out of state, and I still remember that even on my journey there I was miserable. I really tried very hard to convince my parents that I would improve my grades and behave myself if they gave me a chance to stay with them, but they had made up their minds. Back then, it really hadn't occurred to me that maybe this was not about the grades and my behavior in the first place, and they would have resented me even if I was the best kid in the world. Anyway, when we got to my aunt's place, they stayed there for a couple of days and helped me settle in, but even then I was quite upset. My aunt was the only person who made the transition easier for me, because she is perhaps the kindest and most loving soul one could ever find. My aunt is my dad's older sister and the oldest of 4 siblings. She had never married or had any kids of her own, which is probably why she had agreed to raise me. While all her other siblings had left the farm that they had grown up on for other pursuits in their career, she had decided to stay and work on the farm that their parents had left to them. She could tell that I was very upset while moving in with her, so she tried to tell me that everything would be fine and I would really like this place once I got to know it well, and that really helped me. After a couple of days when my parents finally left, I started to break down, and even then my aunt was the only person who was there for me, because even though she kept calling my parents trying to get them to speak to me so that I would feel better, they hardly ever answered the phone. I wouldn't do anything but cry for the next couple of weeks, and my aunt was there for me all along. So gradually I started to feel better, and after a couple of months of staying with her, I stopped missing my parents altogether because honestly, living with her was much better. I would work on the farm and go to school, and, strangely enough, I wasn't doing too badly at school while living with my aunt. I had made quite a lot of friends, the school work did not seem difficult, and the teachers seemed to like me as well. Basically, my life started to improve as soon as I was sent away by my parents, and even though we would see each other on the holidays, I realized that I was much better off without them in my life. They had told my aunt that they were sending me to live with her because I was a troubled child and I needed a change of environment to do better. But after staying with her for a couple of months, I told her the truth about how my parents had never really wanted me and how they had always treated me badly, and I thanked her for taking me in. After that, even my aunt's behavior towards my parents started to change and she became a lot colder and more distant to them. We saw them at family get-togethers and events a couple of times after that, but in the past 12 years we haven't really interacted much. They don't seem to care how I'm doing and I'm happier without them. My sister is around 12 years old now and I don't even have a relationship with her. But that's probably for the best because from whatever I've heard from other members of our family, she isn't really growing up to be a nice person. Even though she's just 12, she has a really nasty attitude and doesn't know how to speak to people politely. Apparently she's even one of the biggest troublemakers at school, but that's trouble for my parents to handle, not me. I've been doing pretty well in my life since I'm in college right now, and I'm getting a degree in business so that I can take over the farm and handle the business when my aunt cannot do it anymore. The college that I go to is pretty close, so I can go back home every weekend and it's quite convenient. Last week, while I was at home, my parents decided to call my aunt since they didn't know how to contact me, and after almost 12 years, I had a proper conversation with them on the phone. However, it was not really a good conversation because what they were asking for was ridiculous. When my aunt handed the phone to me, I was quite intrigued, and after some small talk about my life, my parents told me that they were really proud of the fact that I was doing so well for myself, and then they told me that they wanted another shot at parenting, so they wanted me to keep in touch with them and come back to them after college ended. I was really taken aback by that because I really couldn't imagine any scenario where they would say this. So I ended up asking them why they would say something like that all of a sudden, and then they told me that it was mostly because of my sister. Apparently, she is even more of a problem child than I used to be, and it's really shameful for them. So they want me to reconnect with them and prove to people that they can raise good kids as well. So, basically, the real reason that they wanted to reconnect with me was because they wanted to show their close friends and family members that they were not incapable of raising good children. I'm guessing that people had started judging them because when I used to stay with them, I used to be quite a problematic kid, and now that my sister is growing up to be the same way, the pressure is on for them to prove that they are not bad parents. It's a ridiculous reason to want me back, and what's crazier is that they actually expected me to entertain that idea on the phone. So I made it very clear to them that I was not coming back and neither was I going to help them prove anything to their friends and family, because I really had nothing to do with them and they did not have anything to do with me. That was for sure. I think I have already mentioned how I was doing terribly while I was living with my parents and how much better I started to do in my life when I moved in with my aunt. So really, I don't think they had any problem children. I think they were the problem all along. Besides, it would be a huge lie if I said that my parents had raised me well, because they had not raised me at all. It was my aunt who had done that job, and I was not going to let them take credit for it. Most of the people in our family and even their friends knew that I was being taken care of by my aunt anyway, but they planned on telling them that apparently they had kept in touch with me over the past 12 years and visited quite frequently, so even they had a hand in it. And that was not true either. So I told them that I was not going to help them prove anything and that they were on their own. They started throwing a tantrum about how they had supported me and my aunt throughout the past 12 years, but they had only done the bare minimum and sent us a check every month which barely even covered anything, and ultimately my aunt would have to pay for stuff out of her own pockets anyway. But even that she did without complaint, and here they were showing off the bare minimum. They started to tell me that my sister had turned out to be a failure and it was really humiliating for them, so I had to help them out because they were my parents, after all. I lost it at that point and I told them that they were anything but my parents and I don't even consider them family anymore. So they needed to leave me and my aunt alone because she was the only family that I had. So, am I the asshole for telling my parents that I don't consider them my family anymore? Update 1. Hello guys, so a couple of days ago I made my original post and most of you guys agree that I am NTA. So for that I'm really thankful to you because it really puts things into perspective for me. To be honest, the only reason I had been doubting myself was that in the past 1 week my parents had left no stone unturned to try and convince me that what I said was a really horrible thing and they were making it feel like I had been nasty to them on purpose. But honestly, I really didn't think that I had said anything that was out of pocket to them. I thought I was being perfectly reasonable and it's not even like I had cursed at them or something. However, after reading the comments and stuff, I realized that they were only trying to make me feel guilty, probably because they wanted to get me to agree to their terms and come back home so they could show people how successful they had been as parents. I have them blocked everywhere, but they still have been texting me through other accounts and phone numbers, and it's getting pretty annoying. I did speak to my aunt about it, and she just told me that I needed to ignore all of it because if I knew that I was right, there was nothing that I needed to feel sorry about. She has also spoken to a couple of other family members, and it was mostly just to find out why they were so desperate to prove that they were good parents all of a sudden. That's how she found out that a couple of weeks ago at my sister's 12th birthday party, she had been caught smoking, and when my parents tried to take it away from her, she threw such a massive tantrum that she ended up making my mom cry. That was the day that my mom's older sister, my other aunt, her parents and a couple of other family members told her that it was their failure that their 12-year-old daughter had been able to access a cigarette, and if they had been more proactive as parents then this wouldn't have happened. Anyway, apparently they had spoiled my sister ever since she was really young and had never said no to her for anything. They even gave her a huge amount of pocket money and let her do whatever she wanted with it, not even bothering to do the bare minimum of supervising that money. Basically, my 12-year-old sister could do whatever she wanted because she knew that she had her parents wrapped around her finger, and the cigarette incident had caused a lot of their friends and family to really judge them and call them out on how they were raising their child. Now my parents were just desperate to prove that they were not really bad parents, which is why they wanted me to come back to them so they could show me around like a trophy. It was really pathetic of them, and more importantly, they had to know that this plan was not going to work because everyone knew that I was being raised by my aunt. In fact, even the people that my aunt had spoken to said that they had also disapproved of my parents' decision to send me away when I was not doing well, because that's not how you treat your kids when they are not doing well. You try to help them out and not just wash your hands off of them. Several times they had even told my parents to bring me back to them after the birth of my sister, so we could grow up together. But my parents had brushed it all off, saying that I was happier with my aunt and they knew what was best for me. I really don't understand how my parents think or if they are even capable of thinking about anybody apart from themselves. Even with my sister, it was really easy for them to tell me that she was a failure and write her off while trying to get me back. And it scares me that she's just 12 years old. She needs some guidance and counseling, that's all. I believe that that will be enough for her to be brought back onto the right path, but I don't think my parents are the right kind of people to do that. She is the one kid that they sent me away for because they wanted to save all their resources for her. Their time, their money, and their energy. And now this is the way they have been raising her and treating her, even though they sacrificed their relationship with their oldest kid for her sake, or so they say. I don't think they care about any of their kids at all, and I don't really think that they were ever cut out to be parents in the first place. It would be very easy for me to hate my sister because she got everything that I never did from our parents. The love, the care, and the affection, and of course the money and time. But honestly, I just feel bad for her because in spite of all of that, it's not what you need to raise a kid the right way. My parents somehow managed to fail both their children, and that's what's the most shocking bit about this situation. I just hope that they stop calling me and texting me because I really don't want to speak to them, especially after what I found out from my aunt and other members of the family. The next time that they try to get to me and make me feel guilty, they are definitely going to get it from me. Update 2. So it has been a couple of days since my update, and like I had said, if my parents tried to make me feel guilty once more, they would get it from me, and they did. A couple of hours ago, they called me up from a blocked phone, and as soon as I picked up, they started telling me that I owed it to them to apologize for what I had said and come back home. I was already feeling quite under the weather today and was not in a good mood. That phone call just made things worse, and I lost my temper. I started yelling at them, and I told them that I was not going to apologize for anything that I had said because it was all the truth. They really were not my parents. They had done nothing to earn that, and if I really had to call anybody my family, it would be my aunt. She was the one who had raised me. They had had nothing to do with me for the past 12 years, and even before that, all they had done was neglect me. So if they can't handle the fact that I don't think of them as my family, they don't have anybody else to blame but themselves, and they need to introspect instead of calling me up again and again to try and make me feel bad for something that I really don't have to feel bad about. They tried to interrupt me and tell me that my aunt might have raised me, but they were the ones who had supported us, and we shouldn't forget that. And I told them that the money that they would send us badly covered any of my expenses, and my aunt would have to pay for everything out of her own pockets anyway, so it was meaningless. Besides, they wouldn't even have had to send any child support to my aunt if they had bothered to keep their child with them. So they needed to stop acting like they were doing my aunt a huge favor by sending us money as child support. I told them that it was the bare minimum that they could have done for her after dumping their son onto her, and it's out of the greatness of her heart that she never spoke about this to the other people in the family and spoiled their reputation, even though she could have easily done so. They needed to stop talking about the money that they had spent, because money is not everything, and that's clearly a lesson they should have learned after the incident at my sister's birthday party, because they kept throwing money at their youngest daughter as well, and look where that landed them. She was a spoiled brat, and even though they were the ones referring to her as a failure, the real failures were always going to be my parents, because they had failed us both. When I said that to them, they instantly got defensive and told me that I had no idea what I was talking about, that my sister was really happy and the incident at her birthday was just a one-off thing. But what I know for a fact is that happy kids, especially 12-year-olds, don't just start smoking because they can. I told them that I was pretty sure that they were just saying this to convince themselves, because I was definitely not convinced that they were doing the best that they could while raising my sister. In fact, they were doing the exact same thing that they had done to me, just the opposite of it. While they had failed me by not giving me any attention, they were doing the same to her, but alongside that, they were also giving her a bunch of money to burn and spoiling her by not disciplining her during the time that they spent together. And that was very obvious to me, even though I had never even met the kid. Besides, the fact that they had felt the need to reach out to me to prove to other people that they were good parents, it just went on to show that they couldn't care less about actually being good to their children. They just wanted to prove to everyone that they were good to their children, and there was a huge difference between the two. I guess this was too much truth for my parents to handle, and they immediately started screaming at me, cussing me out and telling me that I had no idea what I was talking about. But judging by the way they had immediately become defensive and started yelling at me, I would say that I had hit the nail pretty much on the head. We kept arguing for a couple of minutes more, and then they told me that they were glad that they had sent me away all those years ago, because I was clearly not good enough to be their son in the first place, and they were really happy that they had chosen to stay with their daughter instead. Then they hung up, probably thinking that whatever they had said to me those last couple of seconds would have made me feel really bad. But I really didn't care. I was just happy that I had won this argument, because otherwise they wouldn't have had to resort to such low blows, and now I'm hoping that they will think twice before picking fights with me or calling me up again. The only thing that I do have regrets about is that I don't think I'll be able to do anything about this situation with my sister. It's a pity, because I know for a fact that she would be able to do well if she was just brought out of the environment that my parents have created for her. But well, you win some, you lose some. Update 3. So it's been a week since I last spoke to my parents. They did not bother me after that last phone call, and I think that's good for them anyway. From what I know, they have been telling everybody in the family that the cigarette incident with my sister was just a one-time thing, and she had never done this before, and neither would this ever happen again. But nobody was fooled. People had guessed that there was something going on with her, and even if this was the first time she had smoked a cigarette, there was no telling what else she had done in the past. And the only people who were responsible for this were my parents, because it was obvious that this had happened due to a severe lack of supervision and discipline. Normally, I don't really encourage judging people without knowing them, but I know my parents, and I think they deserve to be judged. I mean, what kind of people just get rid of one kid when they are pregnant with another? My parents, that's who. I'm just glad that the rest of my family is finally realizing how messed up they are as people and are starting to maintain their distance from them. In fact, my aunt has even started telling people after staying silent for so long about how the real reason that they had left me with her was not because I was a troubled kid in the past, but just because they wanted to spend more time with their other kid and did not want me. And even though I had actually been a troubled kid, it was not my fault. It had just been because of my parents, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to do well even after I had moved away. She had kept all of this to herself for the past 12 years because she really did not want to spoil my parents' reputation. But at this point she thought that they deserved it. They had it a long time coming, and it was only out of our decency that we hadn't spoken up about it. People are already quite wary of my parents because of how defensive they have become, and they are obviously in denial of the fact that they have failed as parents, and our version of what had happened all those years ago when they had left me with my aunt. It has just made everybody realize that my parents are the real villains and that they really do not deserve either of us, not my sister and definitely not me. Some people might think that we are going overboard and that we don't need to kick them when they are down, but honestly, none of this would have been happening if they hadn't called me up and told me to help them pretend that they were good parents. So they totally deserve this. Update 4. Hey, so it's been a couple of weeks since I last posted, and there is a major update because my grandparents, my maternal ones, have decided to fight for custody of my sister. I had kept in touch with most of my family even after my parents had sent me away to live with my aunt, so my grandparents and I have a normal relationship, which is why when they called me up a couple of days back to ask me how my relationship with my parents had been when they had sent me away, I decided to finally tell them the truth. They told me that they were glad that I had decided to finally speak up about how they had treated me back then because for so many years they had believed that their daughter and her husband, my parents, had had a good enough reason to send me away. But now they were realizing that no reason was good enough to send their own child away. They apologized to me for not seeing the truth sooner, and I had to tell them that it was fine because honestly everybody has a lot on their plates, and I'm sure that I was not exactly suffering on the surface. So nobody could have ever realized without being told that I was not being treated right by my parents. Apparently, after the incident with my sister, they had been hearing rumors from a lot of other members of the family about how I had been treated since my aunt had finally decided to speak up about how my parents had had absolutely nothing to do with me after they had dropped me off here. On hearing that, my grandparents decided to look into the matter themselves because they did not want their younger grandkids to be suffering through the same things that I did. So they spoke to me, and when they realized that my parents had not changed a bit and they were still trying to just show that they were good parents but couldn't be bothered to actually be there for their kids, they decided to fight for the custody of my sister so she could be brought up differently. I think it's the right thing to do, and I can say it with full confidence because my life definitely improved after I stopped living with my parents, so I think it will be the same for her as well. Maybe in a different way, but I'm pretty sure that it will really help her. They have already managed to get temporary custody of her, and she seems kind of indifferent to this massive change, which means that with time she is going to feel better about it. My grandparents are confident that they will be able to get full custody of her soon enough, but they will make sure that my parents also have visitation rights. The best thing that has come out of the situation, in my opinion, is that my sister has tried to put in an effort to build a relationship with me, and we have been talking to each other on the phone for the last couple of days. She seems happy to talk to me, and I already know that for the past couple of years she had been instructed by our parents not to speak to me because I was not a good influence. But now she's finally coming around to me, and maybe we will be able to build a good relationship by the end of this. I'm hopeful enough. Now on to the next story. Story 7. My ex-husband forced me to quit my job and then left me for his secretary. At our son's birthday party, he showed up with his affair partner to embarrass me in front of everyone. This happened with my ex-husband, Kevin, 38M. A little less than a week ago. Kevin is a textbook narcissist, and he hides these traits really well, covering them up brilliantly, so I fell for it. I, 36F, have known him for the past 14 years. He was on the same team as me at my first job and was kind of a mentor to me initially. He taught me the ropes of the work and was there to help me out whenever I felt stuck. But he never tried to hit on me at work. He was never indecent, never made any sort of advances, or behaved in a way that made me feel something was up. 2 years later, when I was 24 and he was 26, he switched jobs. On his last day at the office, he pulled me aside and told me that he liked me a lot and wanted to date me, but never said anything because he didn't want to make things awkward between us at work. More than me liking him, I was floored by his honesty, and I had always known that he was a kind and good man, so I said yes. We dated for a short while before we made things official, and we had been together ever since. We faced life together, but last year he left me for his personal secretary, Emma, and it's as though he became a new man altogether. At first, I thought this was some weird sort of midlife crisis, given how he was behaving and how abruptly things went south, but it was like he had become a completely different person. The fact that he would throw away 11 years of being together was shocking to me, and in the initial weeks after he told me he wanted a divorce, I couldn't fathom exactly why something like this would happen. But I've been to therapy ever since the divorce, And there I learned that beneath all that nice guy exterior lay the biggest a-hole and gaslighter who would make sure you lose your friends, your sanity, and your self-confidence before giving you the biggest blow of your life. And all of this happens so gradually that you don't even realize it, but you've changed into a shell of your former self. That's exactly what happened to me. He didn't show me a single red flag at first, but revealed his true colors gradually. Kevin and I got married 3 years into dating. I was 27 and he was 29. Both of us were working at the time, and I had never told him or even indicated that I wanted to leave work and stay at home. That was just not me. I had worked very hard to be where I was and had never imagined that one day I wouldn't be working. However, a few months after we got married, there was a management change at my company and I was laid off. I was devastated because I hadn't seen it coming. I was actually the top performer at the firm and had never anticipated they would let me go. I tried applying for jobs, but I didn't receive many callbacks. The ones I did get severely underpaid me. I asked Kevin to help me out with applications and to refer me to some places. He said he would, but he never did. He was very vague about the entire situation, and to be honest, that should have been my first sign to run. But I trusted and loved him too much to even comprehend that he'd pull something like this. Surprisingly, during the whole job hunting ordeal, I got pregnant. It was very unusual because we'd always been careful and I was on birth control, but I guess those things fail sometimes. Kevin told me that it was best if I stopped looking for jobs for now because we had a baby on the way. This was immediately after the doctor's appointment, maybe 7 to 8 weeks into my pregnancy. I told him that the baby still had a long way to go, and I wasn't stopping my career. He said he agreed with me. Haha, liar. But he just felt all the stress about the job and the baby would be detrimental to me, and that at this point I should take one thing at a time. He was so nice and sensible about it that I was convinced. He told me he was earning enough to support both of us and that finances should be the least of my concerns. That felt very reassuring, so I decided to halt the job search, and that's exactly what he wanted. I hoped that once I felt better, I'd start looking for jobs again, but somehow that never happened. When I broached the subject again, I was already 4 months pregnant, and he said I should wait a bit longer. Then my second trimester was hell. I was in constant pain, throwing up almost every day. It was a disaster, and it ended in disaster too because a month later I lost the baby. It was probably the darkest period of my life, and I never wish for anyone to go through that grief. And through it all, I didn't feel as supported as I should have. I had a mental health spiral for a couple of months, and it was a while before I felt better or like myself again. When I decided I wanted to apply for jobs again, Kevin seemed pretty against the idea. He didn't say anything directly, but he wasn't enthusiastic. He subtly implied that I had been out of the workforce for too long and that it would be hard for me to land a job and explain the hiatus. I felt very discouraged. Gradually, I stopped believing in myself and stopped applying for jobs. He showed support, saying that I didn't need to worry, we should focus on starting a family, and that finances were his concern. I believed him, and I felt like I'd never fit into the office space again, so I focused on the house and family. This was exactly what he wanted. He had completely transformed me bit by bit, eroded my sense of self, and made me lose all belief in myself. It happened so gradually that I didn't even realize it, and I don't just blame him. I should have been smarter, no doubt about that. But when the one person you trust so completely tries to tear you down, you begin to believe their version of things, and that's what happened. I focused on the family, and 6 years ago we conceived again. I was overjoyed and very careful this time around. I could not bear to face what I had before. 5 years ago, we had our son, Jerry. Kevin doted on Jerry, but he and I grew apart. I chalked it up to us both having new responsibilities and not being able to make as much time for each other. It wasn't something that would crumble the marriage. We discussed it a few times, so I thought everything was fine. There were hiccups here and there, but that's all they were, hiccups. Everything came crashing down a year and a half ago when I found out Kevin was cheating on me. I found chats and photos on his phone, and there was not much left to the imagination. Instead of playing it smart and planning my exit, I acted impulsively and smashed his phone in his face. Things went downhill immediately. He tried defending himself in all sorts of ways. First, he said it was nothing, then he said all men do it, and finally he said I was neglecting him, forcing him to seek company elsewhere. He went through the typical abuser cycle. Deny it happened, minimize what happened, deflect blame, and finally accuse the other person of overreacting because it isn't a big deal anyway. Well, it was a big deal to me, and I went ahead with a divorce. Kevin was shocked because he never thought I'd actually go all out and leave him. He probably thought that since I was financially dependent on him, I wouldn't leave and would try to patch things up, especially since we had a child together. I won't lie, I had thought about forgiving him because all these things crossed my mind, but somehow good sense prevailed and I realized I couldn't deal with this disrespect. I also knew that if I gave him a chance, he'd just do it all over again. He's not the kind of person to feel guilty and fix his mistakes. He's the kind of guy who tests how much one can tolerate and keeps pushing that boundary until the person collapses. I don't know what kind of sick pleasure he gets from this, but I wasn't going to give him that satisfaction. He resisted the divorce and I was forced to involve his family. To my surprise and his shock, all of them supported me during the divorce. His father went so far as to disown him and they still don't speak, but both my mother and father-in-law are actively involved in Jerry's and my life, and I'm so grateful for that. Not once did they suggest that I try to get back together with him and work things out. They were clear and unwavering in their support. I was never asked to keep the peace, and they said they'd support me and their grandson all the way. Even my sister-in-law, Simone, who I'd never been close with before, was incredibly supportive during the divorce and has stood by me like a rock since. Kevin never anticipated his own family would turn on him and take my side, and by the time he realized what he was losing, it was too late. Now I live with Jerry, and I have full custody of him. Kevin is allowed visitation, and that suits me because I don't want my son near his new girlfriend, who in my eyes is practically still a kid. She's just 22 while Kevin is 38, and I don't want my son around such a problematic dynamic. Things came to a head a few days ago. I had thrown Jerry a birthday party. His friends and some close family were invited, including my in-laws, Simone, mother-in-law, and father-in-law's widowed sister. I had invited Kevin too, but I had made it clear that it was only for him, and I didn't want him to bring anyone with him. By that, I meant I didn't want Lilith, the girlfriend, and I hoped he would respect my wishes. But I was very wrong. He waltzed in with his girlfriend an hour late. By that point, Jerry had lost hope of Kevin coming, and he looked so sullen. It broke my heart. When Kevin walked in, it was obvious what his real motive was. He didn't come for his son, he came to make his relationship public, and Lilith was dressed completely inappropriately for a kid's party, like she was on her way to a nightclub. I wanted to slap her right there, but I kept my composure because I didn't want to ruin Jerry's birthday. My father-in-law was furious and asked me if I wanted him to throw them out, but I told him I didn't want to cause a scene. He took Kevin aside and said something, and I'm sure he gave him an earful, but the damage was done. There was other family and some friends there, and all of them were looking at me with pity. I hated that feeling. I wanted to run to my room and break down, but I didn't because I knew this was exactly what Kevin wanted. All this drama was only to make me break down, nothing else, and I couldn't, under any circumstances, let him win. The mood of the party soured in an instant, and anyone with a functioning brain and nervous system could sense it, but apparently that didn't include my ex-husband. He paraded around like everything was normal, trying to strike up conversations with people. The most comforting part for me was that no one was even trying to be courteous or polite to him. They didn't even pretend to like him. He might have hoped that this little stunt of his would emotionally maul me, but he didn't think that far ahead. Everyone there was either looking at him with rage or disgust or avoiding him like the plague. This included his own family. As for Lilith, she was clinging to Kevin like her life depended on it, and I don't think anyone even spoke to her. It was getting quite embarrassing for her, and she began to realize it, so she wasn't as dumb as I thought. She tried engaging with people, but most of them ignored her or spoke past her. These moments of micro-support from people who were, at best, acquaintances warmed my heart. It felt good knowing the people around me wouldn't tolerate this kind of behavior. Things were getting awkward, and Kevin wasn't getting the desired effect, so he did something downright mean. He knew I was within earshot, and while talking to another parent, had the audacity to say he was glad he was with an ambitious woman now, not a mere housewife like me. I didn't react, which frustrated him, so he pressed the issue. He said Lilith was so full of potential that he felt lucky she chose him, and it was such a contrast from being with me that, well, he didn't get to finish his sentence because someone slapped him. I turned around, and it was Simone. She had slapped her own brother in front of everyone. There was pin-drop silence, and some of the parents left with their children. In a few minutes, I rushed to Jerry, but he looked fine. He was with my mother-in-law, distracted, so thankfully he didn't see his dad getting slapped by his favorite aunt. I heard some arguing between Kevin and Simone but couldn't make out what they were saying. When I went over, Simone was laughing hysterically, and Kevin and Lilith looked like they'd just been humiliated beyond repair. I had no idea what Simone had said to make them react that way. All I knew was that it was serious because the formerly smug and arrogant couple was now red-faced with embarrassment. It didn't take them long to leave. What broke my heart was that Kevin was so wrapped up in his own head that he didn't even say goodbye to Jerry. I had to come up with a story to explain it to Jerry, and thankfully, my mother-in-law and father-in-law were there to salvage the situation. Later, when everything was done and I had some time to myself, I asked Simone what had happened because I missed the best part of the drama. She told me she was sick and tired of Kevin belittling me and parading his little girlfriend around like she was someone great. She said she knew Kevin had influenced me into staying home, which made his comments even more infuriating. She tried to keep quiet, but she knew she had to do something to wipe the smirks off their faces. That's when she decided to strike below the belt, just like they'd been doing all along. Then she smirked and told me that she knew something about Lilith that even Kevin didn't know and used that information to embarrass them at the party, just like they were trying to embarrass me. A few months ago, Simone had been out with a friend at a store and had seen Lilith there alone. Simone and Lilith don't get along well, so she didn't approach her, but she noticed her presence. About half an hour later, Simone saw Lilith arguing with the store manager, and Lilith looked on the verge of tears. Simone intervened, and what she found out shocked her. Lilith had been caught shoplifting, trying to steal hundreds of dollars worth of makeup products. The manager was furious and on the verge of calling the cops. Simone didn't know what came over her, but she helped Lilith out. She told me she didn't want me to be mad, but she bought the products and escalated the situation. She took a bawling Lilith out for coffee, where Lilith confided in her that she had always struggled with shoplifting. She started doing it as a kid, and while it was under control for a while, she had relapsed and found it harder to control the urges. Lilith thanked Simone for helping her out, or it would have been a disaster. Simone told me that was the last time they'd spoken and she hadn't seen Lilith since. But when she saw her acting like a brat at the party, she knew she had to do something. Simone said she tried staying quiet for a while, glaring at Lilith the whole time, giving her a chance to shut up and not be obnoxious because she didn't want to stoop to that level. But when the glares didn't work, she knew spilling the beans was the only way to get Lilith to stop. That's what caused such a commotion. Lilith probably never thought Simone would actually tell everyone about her secret. Maybe Lilith assumed that because Simone was Kevin's sister, her loyalty lay with Kevin and her, not with me. But she was very wrong. I don't know what gave her the impression that Simone and I weren't close. Maybe she assumed it, or maybe Kevin oversold his relationship with Simone. Whatever the reason, Lilith acted smart and ended up paying for it because according to Simone, everyone at the party heard what she said and there were audible gasps. Kevin was taken aback when Simone exposed her, and that's when I came over to see what was happening. Even though Lilith's dirty laundry was aired in public and it probably humiliated her, it might make me a bad person, but I'm kind of glad it happened because she honestly deserved it. I don't say this because she stole my husband. Kevin is the one majorly at fault for what happened between us, but Lilith is still an a-hole because she chose to get involved with a married man and now acts smug about it like she won some prize. Maybe to her Kevin is a prize, but her morals are pretty questionable. That's why I don't feel bad for her. In fact, I think it's hilarious that she was called out publicly, and I can only thank Simone for standing up for me because I know I would have stayed quiet and kept the peace for Jerry's sake. It feels good to have someone who supports you so unconditionally. I may have lost a husband in the past year, good riddance, in hindsight, but I've gained a friend for life, and that holds so much more value. Update 1. It's been a few days since I last updated, and a lot has happened in that time. For the first 4 to 5 days after Jerry's party and the whole fiasco, there was radio silence from both Kevin and Lilith. I honestly didn't think they would contact me at all because I wasn't there when Simone exposed Lilith. I figured the most they'd do was call Simone and harass her, but nothing more. Simone didn't mention anything, so I assumed the drama was over. Jerry kept asking why Kevin left so abruptly, and I had to keep making excuses because Kevin wasn't talking to Jerry either. I don't understand how the humiliation was so bad it made him forget he was a father and he had a duty to his son, whom he loved more than life itself a year ago. The resentment inside me was building, but then Kevin dropped me a text. It was at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, and from the way he typed, I knew he was drunk. The messages were, well, unhinged. It started out very normal, like he wanted to catch up with an old friend. It was so casual I thought he might have meant to send it to someone else. Then he sent me a barrage of texts about how sorry he was for leaving me, how cheating was the worst mistake of his life, and how he missed me and the sun so much it broke his heart every day. This went on until 5 a.m. I didn't respond because, frankly, I didn't know what to say. At 5:30, he sent me a voice note, and to be honest, it sounded sincere. It made me tear up a little, but I know better than to believe him. My life has improved since he left, so there's no chance I'd ever consider taking him back. But he was so heartfelt it made me sad and nostalgic. In the voice note, he confessed that he had never thought I'd actually go through with the divorce. He said his fling with Lilith was meaningless and went on for far too long. He claimed he had meant to end it but never did, and when I caught him, he still thought there was a chance things would be okay between us. He said the fact that we had a son made him more secure because he believed I wouldn't toss away the whole family just like that. He thought I would forgive him, and when I reacted the way I did, he thought I was acting on impulse. That's why he put up the act. When he finally understood I was serious about the divorce, it was too late. He said he had always thought I wouldn't leave him, and if he knew it would end this way, he never would have started anything at all. He hasn't sent any texts since, and I haven't responded because I don't know what to say. It's a weird feeling, therapeutic in a sense, because now I can see that all his bravado was just a facade and he is genuinely affected by the loss of his family. I also feel sad that this is how we ended up, especially since now I know he didn't want this either. Update 2. I've gone through all the comments here, and most of you were right to call me out. Thanks for all the scathing comments because I was spiraling back into my old patterns and it would have just ended badly for me. I should have been furious after his voice note. That was not an admission of guilt or a desire for repentance on his part. It was just a confession that the reason we're here is because I took a stand for myself and he was actually counting on me not doing anything about it. The nostalgia momentarily snapped all my sensible abilities. But now I see my ex-husband as a scumbag through and through. For those of you who suggested I send all this to Lilith to break them up, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I did nothing of the sort. I'm not going to involve myself in their mess. It took me a lot of time and effort to get away from all this, and I'd be a fool to jump back into it. From what I've heard, Lilith and Kevin are breaking up. She was his secretary, but somehow management found out about her shoplifting issue and she's being terminated. This is apparently too much for Kevin to handle as she's now not good enough for his image. So they're breaking up or have already broken up. Couldn't care less. He hasn't tried reaching out again and he hasn't come to visit Jerry even once, which is infuriating, but I can't force him to be a parent. He's been trying to rebuild bridges with my in-laws, but they haven't been responsive. They're still siding with me, and I can't express how thankful I am for their support. Simone has gone completely no contact with him, saying she can't deal with his shtick anymore, and I totally understand where she's coming from. It's funny how the tables have turned. Kevin wanted to break me down and isolate me, and now he's the one with no family and no partner. I know I shouldn't find comfort in this, but I do. It soothes me to see that he's suffering the same fate he wanted me to suffer. If this isn't poetic justice, I don't know what is. I'm just glad I had the guts to leave him and that Simone exposed Lilith. She wiped the smirk off his face, and I know it'll be a long time before he gathers the courage or confidence to be smug about anything again. Now on to the next story. Story 8. My brother had a secret crush on my wife since school, and he brought my ex to my wedding to stop me from marrying her. So I told his pregnant girlfriend that he was cheating on her. This is going to be a long read, so bear with me. I am 27 and have a younger brother, Jake, fake name, M25. Jake and I have been close as brothers, and we've had a very normal sibling relationship, or so I thought. Maybe I was oblivious to what was going on, or maybe he was really good at hiding his true emotions. This story also involves my ex-girlfriend, Ruth, F27, and my now wife, Zara, F24. Jake, Zara, and I went to the same school. I was a couple of years older than them, so I never interacted much with Zara. I knew Jake and all of his friends, and we played together at times, but that was the extent of our interaction. By the time I reached my junior year, Jake and I started growing apart a little because we had very different interests. I kind of figured that something like this would happen and that it was a natural outcome of growing up, so I didn't really push for a close relationship with him. We did hang out occasionally, but we didn't share secrets. Boys don't really do that. So it didn't bother me much either. The only thing of significance to this story is that while I was about to leave for college, Jake was hanging around with a couple of his friends and their girlfriends, one of whom was Zara. Before you start accusing me of being a creep or a groomer for going after a 15-year-old, I want to make it clear that nothing of that sort happened. I met all the kids over there, and one of them asked me where I was going to college. When I told them, Zara chimed in that it was her dream university, and I just remarked that she was more than welcome to ask for my help when she applied. That was it. I had no other interaction with her at school. I then went off to college and forgot all about that little interaction because it was inconsequential. In college, I met Ruth. We were classmates and we hit it off instantly. Took me a while to ask her out, and I managed to do so in my third year of college. She said yes, and we started dating. At the beginning of the relationship, everything was great. We suited each other well because we were struggling with similar things and wanted a similar life for ourselves, so I felt like I really understood her. I landed a well-paying job right out of college, but unfortunately, Ruth did not. I was more than willing to help her out, and we decided to move in together to save costs. She was applying for jobs left, right, and center, but somehow, even after making it to the interview stage, she never got accepted. I knew this was taking a mental toll on her, and while I did earn enough for the two of us, it was still difficult to save much because it was so early on in my career. She kept applying to different places for over a year, but with no luck. It was devastating for her, and I tried to be as supportive as possible. However, soon after, she got the idea that we could live comfortably on my income alone, and she stopped trying altogether. Initially, I thought she was just exhausted from applying and getting rejected and that it was taking a mental toll on her, so I welcomed the change. I told her to take some time off and do things she enjoyed, which is what she did. This went on for 3 or 4 months. She got happier, less stressed, stopped complaining as much, and was in a much better mental state than before, and I was happy for her. I thought I'd gently nudge her to start looking for jobs again in the next few weeks. A month later, I broached the topic, but she had a very bad reaction to it, saying that just the mere mention of going through that harrowing process again was enough to make her cry, and she told me not to bring it up again. She said she would start applying when she was ready. I trusted her word and didn't want to pressure her or come off as unsupportive, so I agreed. 2 years after I got my job, I received a promotion with a significant raise. I was overjoyed because now I could finally start saving and doing things I enjoyed. For the last 2 years, I had to put many of my desires on hold in order to support 2 people on my income. Coupled with Ruth's mental health struggles, my own hobbies naturally took a back seat. I was relieved that I could now have some money to enjoy myself. However, the minute Ruth found out that I had received a raise, she started begging me to help fund her niece's education. Ruth's brother was broke and could never hold a job for more than a couple of months. He had gotten a woman pregnant and had no idea. The issue was that the woman died, leaving no family, so the child went to Ruth's brother, and he was thoroughly unequipped to take care of another human being. Ruth begged me, saying she loved her niece, I don't know how, as they had only met twice, and that she would never forgive herself if she couldn't help her out. This was all becoming too much for me, so I told her that I'd think about it and left it at that. Part of me was genuinely considering giving her the money, but another nastier part of me thought that it was her niece, and she could get up and pick up a job and help her out. I drank a lot that night, and as I kept drinking, all the rationale and logic that I had buried in my mind suddenly came rushing to the surface. I had always suspected that Ruth was trying to leech off of me, but I never gave much weight to those thoughts because I was in love with her. However, I couldn't shake those feelings anymore. I was funding her entire life, which I was happy to do, but to expect me to fund her niece the minute I got a raise, especially at the cost of what I wanted for myself, seemed a bit much. I knew it was time to take a stand for myself because if I started funding the niece now, I'd never be able to get out of it for the rest of my life. The next day, I sat Ruth down and told her that I would not be funding her niece, no matter how dire the circumstances. I also told her that if she felt bad for the poor kid, she was more than welcome to pick up a job and help her out. That would be her money, and I didn't care what she did with it. She tried to butt in, saying that I was being cruel and that an unfortunate child needed my help, but I wasn't having any of it. I also told her that if she wasn't going to get a job, the division of household chores was going to change. We had no kids and no pets, so I expected her to pick up 80% of the chores if she wasn't contributing financially. I told her that I had slaved away for the last 2 years, juggling work and home and supporting her, but now I needed a break. If she wasn't willing to support me monetarily so that I could have more money for myself, then she had to help take some of the workload off of me. To say that she started yelling would be an understatement. I don't think I've ever had the unfortunate experience of listening to such high decibels before. It was a miracle I didn't leave the conversation with my ears bleeding. During her long tirade, she called me every name in the book. Manipulative, gaslighting, financially abusive, misogynistic, you name it. But to me, I just needed a break. Why were we even partners if she couldn't do this for me? The fight went on for a long time. I think she believed I would give in because I've always been non-confrontational. To her surprise, I didn't. We were at a stalemate for a few more days when I tried to revisit the topic, but she shut me down again. That's when I knew we were done. There was no future for me in this relationship where all I was doing was subsidizing her life and getting nothing in return. The breakup was ugly. She didn't have anywhere to go because she didn't have a job. I told her that I was willing to give her some money to sustain herself for a month or two. But by then, she should have her situation figured out because I was done. Cue the waterworks. She started crying, saying I was bluffing and pulling the entire drama routine. I told her that I wasn't interested in this relationship anymore and my decision was final. There was no way to salvage it, and all the remedies she was suggesting now should have come to her while we were still together, not as a last resort. Despite me setting her up for a couple of months, the breakup was still ugly. It was only after she moved out that I realized just how much dead weight I had been carrying. I had so much time and energy to devote to myself. I picked up hobbies I had abandoned back in school. It was through these hobbies that I reconnected with Zara. Zara didn't go to my college but ended up pursuing painting and the arts as a profession. I had always enjoyed doodling as a kid, even though it was kind of a secret hobby because it wasn't considered masculine enough. Well, there was an art exhibition in my city, and I went out of curiosity. That's where I found Zara. She had put up a piece in the exhibition and we got to talking. This was a few months after my breakup with Ruth. I asked Zara how everything was going, and we made small talk, which we both enjoyed. We decided to meet up again, and she promised to let me know if there were any other art events in town. She did. We met up again, and we slowly started falling for each other. Took me a year to ask her out, but by then, I was already madly in love with her. I tried asking Jake about her, but he said they hadn't been in contact ever since she broke up with the guy from his friend group back in school. I won't go into all the details of my relationship with Zara because it's not relevant to this story. Just know that it's always been a warm and equal partnership between us, and I knew pretty early on that she was the one I wanted to marry. During this time, Ruth tried to get in touch with me a couple of times, but I always rebuffed her. Zara was always aware of this whenever it happened, and she was secure enough to not doubt me. I introduced Zara to my family over dinner a year into our relationship, and by this time we had already started contemplating marriage. My parents don't interfere in their kids' personal affairs, so that was never an issue. It was a good dinner, and Zara got along well with my family. We were all talking about how funny it was that life works in mysterious ways and how it was pure chance that I bumped into Zara again. It was then that Jake quipped that he couldn't believe his middle school crush was going to be his sister-in-law. It seemed like a light-hearted joke at the time, and everyone present took it that way. Zara even said that Jake was the only guy in their group who was remotely interesting to talk to. It was a fun dinner, and I thought nothing of Jake's comment. He seemed really happy for me, too. Little did I know, he had been harboring feelings for Zara all these years, even though he'd been in multiple relationships. The issues started during the wedding planning. It wasn't obvious to me at the time because I never would have thought my own brother would pull something like this. It was little things at first. Messing up the time for the dress appointment, forgetting to check in with the caterer, things that could be attributed to him just being forgetful. I now know that it was deliberate on his part to create a rift between Zara and me and somehow stop the wedding. None of it worked. We were too strong to be rattled by a few missed appointments, even though it was a high-stress situation for both of us. If anything, Zara became even more short and snippy with Jake, which only hurt him more. The final blow came on the wedding day. All this time, I had not been in contact with Ruth. I didn't know where she was, what she was doing, or how she was faring, and frankly, I wasn't interested. Little did I know, Jake had been in touch with her for months leading up to the wedding. He was hoping for some kind of intervention-like drama, and if nothing else worked, he planned to get Ruth to coerce or persuade me into leaving Zara. She wasn't on the guest list, but she showed up as Jake's +1. This was surprising to me because everyone in the family had met Jake's girlfriend, and we were expecting her to be there. I didn't have time to ask him what Ruth was doing there, but I had a bad feeling. Thankfully, Zara hadn't noticed Ruth by this point. Just before Zara was about to walk down the aisle, Ruth stood up and started screaming in front of everyone, claiming that she was the love of my life and she was willing to take me back and that I didn't need to marry Zara. It caused a huge commotion, and Ruth started crying and stomping her feet like a petulant child. It was pathetic, to be honest. I ran over to Jake, grabbed him by the collar, and told him to leave. He said he had come to make everything right, claiming that Ruth and I were meant for each other and that Zara and he were meant to be together. He rambled on with some delusional nonsense, and I was appalled. I asked my friends to escort both him and Ruth out of there. At this point, Zara had come out, and I don't even know whether she fully grasped what was happening, but she calmly walked over to Ruth, slapped her in front of everyone, blew her a kiss and asked her bridesmaids to start the music. I've never seen something more iconic in my life. It was so humiliating for Ruth, and instead of creating a scandal around me, she just turned herself into a spectacle in front of everyone. The rest of the wedding went as smoothly as it could, given the circumstances. It was a dramatic day, not at all what I had hoped for, but there wasn't much I could do to salvage the situation at that point. I blocked Jake right after the wedding. I wasn't interested in hearing his side of the story because he had already shown me plenty. It was disgusting and despicable, more so because Zara and Jake had never even shared any real bond. He was delusional and, frankly, dangerous to be around. Most importantly, I felt horrible for his girlfriend, Violet. A few days after the wedding, I called Violet to ask why she wasn't at the wedding and why Jake didn't bring her as his +1. I wanted to know what kind of story he had been feeding her before I decided to meddle in their relationship. She was pretty short with me, saying I didn't have to pretend to like her and that she would much rather I drop the facade and be honest with her. I knew instantly that Jake had used either me or Zara as an excuse to keep her from coming to the wedding. I asked her why she was saying that, and she told me to cut the act, because Jake had already told her that she wasn't invited. That's why he didn't get a +1 for the wedding. She said she didn't mind him going and didn't mind that we didn't like her, but she was very put off by the fact that the entire family pretended to like her when, in fact, we couldn't stand her. I emphatically told her none of that was true and that Jake had misled her. I begged her not to tell Jake or our parents about our conversation for the next 2 weeks and that Zara and I would meet her after we returned from our honeymoon. She said she wouldn't betray Jake for US, so I had to send her a photo of the actual invitation that was sent out to Jake, which clearly had a +1. I also sent her screenshots of my conversations with Jake where I confirmed her attendance with him. She said she didn't believe us, and I told her I understood and that we weren't asking her to trust us. We just wanted her to keep quiet until we could meet and clear up the miscommunication. She agreed, but I didn't know if she would actually stick to it. I could only hope nothing would go wrong while I enjoyed my honeymoon, but I was really looking forward to showing Violet Jake's true colors. Update 1. I didn't realize this story would gain so much attention. My inbox is flooded with people asking for updates, but as I said, I was out enjoying my honeymoon and didn't bother to check Reddit. Fortunately, nothing untoward happened during the honeymoon itself. Jake remained blocked, and he didn't try calling me. Violet sent a short text saying she hadn't talked to Jake about our conversation but wanted to meet as soon as I returned from my honeymoon. The meeting happened a few hours ago. We met at a cafe because Violet didn't feel comfortable coming to our home. She was very defensive at first, with her body language and attitude making it clear she wasn't interested in listening to us, but we told her what had happened in detail. At first, she refused to believe us, calling us crazy for accusing Jake like that. However, during the honeymoon, I asked some friends if they had any videos from the wedding. While there wasn't one video that captured the entire ordeal, a few people were making videos, and we managed to roughly piece the incident together. I showed those videos to Violet and then explained the whole Ruth situation. That's when she started to believe us. She asked Zara if there had ever been anything between her and Jake, and Zara firmly said no. Violet found it hard to believe that Jake would be so delusional about everything, especially if there was nothing going on. Zara said she was baffled as well. There had been a maximum of 10 to 12 in-person interactions, and she didn't know when or how Jake fell for her or assumed she had fallen for him. We told Violet we thought it was our duty to make her aware of what was happening and that she was free to do whatever she wanted with the information. We also told her that we had blocked Jake and were going no contact with him, and we didn't see that changing anytime soon, if ever. She said she understood where we were coming from, but she also said she wanted to confront Jake and do it as soon as possible. We tried to dissuade her a little, but she said she owed it to herself, especially since she was pregnant, to know whether it was wise to stay with Jake. Both Zara and I congratulated her on the pregnancy and told her we would support her no matter what. She said she was sure she wanted to proceed with the confrontation, but for that, she would have to disclose that we had reached out to her and shared everything. Though it wasn't ideal as both Zara and I wanted to stay out of the Jake drama, we also knew standing by Violet was the right thing to do. We told her she had our full support and we would do whatever it took to help her out. That was all that happened at the meeting, but I know this isn't the end. Things are about to blow up for Jake, and he has absolutely no idea what's coming. Update 2. I know this update is coming very soon, but things have escalated beyond repair. I've unintentionally started a storm that I don't regret, and Jake is about to go down hard. After Violet spoke with us, she didn't waste any time and went straight for the jugular. She called up Jake and asked if he was at work. When he said yes, she marched over to his office that very minute and confronted him. Things got ugly. She went straight into his office. She was allowed in because she told them she was dropping off some files for him, and asked if he had pulled the stunts we had told her about. Jake tried to tell her it wasn't the place to talk and that they would talk once he got home, but Violet wasn't having it. There was a fair bit of yelling involved, and HR had to be called up to his floor. Here's where things get even better or worse for Jake. The HR assistant asked Violet who she was and why she was creating such a scene, and Violet told her she was Jake's girlfriend and that she was pregnant. To her surprise, Jake denied it. He denied being her boyfriend outright. There was more yelling, and Violet was eventually escorted out. When Jake went home that day, a storm was waiting for him. They got into a massive fight, the details of which I don't know. What I do know is that it came to light that Jake had been cheating on Violet for a long time, and the woman he was cheating with was none other than the HR assistant who had intervened during the confrontation. So Jake is screwed. Violet is going to leave him. I know that for sure because she's a no-nonsense woman who doesn't tolerate disrespect. For her to condone cheating and forgive Jake is next to impossible. As for his affair partner, Jake's office has a very strict no-dating policy. They make employees sign agreements and everything. Since the confrontation and Violet's little outburst at the office, his affair partner, let's call her Jane, learned that Jake had been posing as a single man and that he had a girlfriend who was pregnant. Jane was appalled to learn she was the other woman, and that Jake had been lying to her the whole time. Word got around like wildfire, and Jake is now under fire at work for what he did. To make matters worse for him, Jane has connections with the higher-ups in the company, so Jake is screwed in more ways than one. He might lose his job, and he's definitely going to lose Violet. Oh, and Violet has also kicked him out of the house. It turns out the house they lived in belonged to Violet's grandmother, so Jake has nowhere to go. Jake paid us a visit in the middle of the night to explain all this to me. I don't know why, but I let him in. I've never seen him so furious in my life. He kept screaming about how I ruined his life and how I never deserved someone like Zara, and that she would one day leave me for him. He sounded so unhinged. It actually made me scared for his mental health. He needs help, a therapist, or maybe even a psychiatrist. Jake got violent with me too. I know people will call me an idiot for not calling the cops on him, but at the end of the day, he's my brother, and I didn't want to cause more problems for him. I felt pity for him more than anything else. It's impossible to fathom how someone can destroy their life with one stupid decision. He had everything anyone could have wanted. A great job, a loving and loyal girlfriend, and now a baby on the way, and he blew it all away with one stupid decision after another, living in a bubble of weird fantasies. I just feel sorry for him at this point. Update 3. Jake lost his job. This comes as no surprise, but I still feel bad. Violet has broken up with him and doesn't want anything to do with him. My parents are fully supporting Violet, as are Zara and I. Now, Jake thinks I've turned the entire family against him over a harmless prank. Yeah, now he's calling his declaration of undying love a prank. Nobody is buying into this new narrative of his, and he has been completely ostracized by the family. I don't know where he's staying now, and this drama has been getting on my nerves. I'm a newlywed, and I can't keep running around, dealing with the mess Jake has made. I know I started this by involving Violet in the first place, and I'm glad I did, but I never anticipated it would blow up this big. It's a total mess, and I don't see how Jake can recover from this. My parents are furious with him for throwing everything away and basically being a scumbag, and I don't blame them. We weren't raised like this, and I don't know how he turned out this way. That being said, this will be my last update. Zara and I have decided we need to leave all this behind us. We will be there for Violet and our niece or nephew in whatever capacity she needs, and she will always have a home with us. But other than that, we're done. Thank you, Reddit, for all the advice. I never thought I'd have a dysfunctional story of my own to share, but well, it is what it is. Now on to the next story. Story 9. My boyfriend's ex sent him a nude, so I confronted him, and then I found out that he had been cheating our entire relationship. My boyfriend, let's call him Isaac, has his own podcast. It's finally starting to blow up a little. Due to privacy and me quite literally being on a few of the episodes, I'm not naming the talk show or podcast. He's nowhere near famous, but he's finally starting to be recognized. I used to be the main co-host, but I've been too busy with work lately to be overly active on the show. Obviously, you can't have a podcast with one person. That's kind of boring. So Isaac told me he found someone to have as a more constant co-host when I'm not available. I told him that was great and asked him who it was. He told me her name was Abigail and sent me her Instagram. It didn't seem like he was hiding anything, so everything felt fine. But about a week later, we were having dinner with our friend group when Isaac's best friend, Josh, told me in front of everyone that he was surprised about how cool I was with Isaac working with his ex-fling. Let's say my reaction was the complete opposite of cool. I was more upset that Isaac lied to me than anything. Why would he feel the need to lie about something like that? I like to consider myself pretty laid back about these kinds of things. Would I have felt awkward? Yes. But the show is recorded in the apartment that me and Isaac share, and I seriously don't see him cheating on me. We're really serious, and I've been talking about marriage lately. But the fact that he lied is the only red flag he's really shown me, but I just feel really weird about it. When we got home, I made him talk to me about it. About a year before he met me, he met Abigail and had a friends with benefits relationship with her. Apparently, he ended things with her because he wanted something more serious, something with a label, and she didn't. Once again, not that disturbing or weird, but he still lied to me. And the way that his best friend said it was almost in awe, like the idea was unbelievable, making me think there's more to the story. I told Isaac I don't feel comfortable with him and Abigail because if he felt the need to lie to me about working with an ex-fling, it's probably not the best idea. He said he really needed someone who could be a constant co-host on the show if I couldn't, and I said he would just have to find someone else because I was not comfortable with this. I told him maybe I would have been if he didn't lie, but he lost that chance. I kept going far enough to say if he kept talking to her, I might have to reconsider our relationship. He eventually agreed, but he's been giving me the silent treatment for the last couple days. Our friend group knows what happened due to the mid-dinner announcement. The split 50-50ths. Some of my friends think I should cut him some slack, and he didn't mean to lie. They're saying Isaac is a good guy who just didn't want to hurt my feelings, but I have a really bad feeling about this now. I'm worried I really did overreact. Other things like this have happened before now that I really think about it. But so many of our friends are saying I'm overreacting over a small mistake, and I think they might be right. Now that I think about it, small things like this have happened in the past. But the thing is, I love Isaac. I'm willing to keep trying for him. I just can't get the sick feeling out of my stomach. The friends on my side think I should continue to talk to him about this, but I don't even know what to say at this point. I really need some advice. Edit. For all of the people going straight to breakup, I do want to make it known that I really love this man. We've been dating for 4 years. We have a child. I'm kidding. She's a cat. I understand that ending things might be the only option, but right now I want to focus more on advice than hearing how I should end things. Isaac has been with me during one of the hardest periods of my life, losing my sister. He is strong and kind and, in the nicest possible way, an airhead. If breaking up becomes necessary, we'll switch gears, but all I need right now is some brutal honesty and advice on what I should say to him. Edit 2. He does have another job due to the fact that we can't survive off my money and the podcast alone. He works today and I work tonight. I'll only have an hour to talk to him, and I don't want the thing to be a lengthy conversation. So I'm going to wait until I'm off on Friday. I don't know what exactly I'll say yet, but I'll figure it out. Thank you for all the responses, and I'll make sure to update. Update 1. August 3rd, 2024. I'm hoping this will reach all of the people that saw and commented on my post. First off, I want to thank you so much to the ones of you who helped me think of questions to ask him. I cannot thank you enough. I was diagnosed with severe anxiety when I was 10 years old. I spent all morning pacing and had a minor anxiety attack before talking to him. Normally things like this make me burst into tears, no matter how major or minor, but I'm proud to say I held my ground. He brought me coffee this morning, something he almost always does. He's been talking to me more now, but there's still this weird distance between us. He brought me coffee, kissed my forehead, and we ate breakfast together. He told me about work, and everything felt so perfect, but I knew deep down it wasn't, that this nagging feeling would never go away if I didn't talk about Abigail. So in the most UNC way possible, I blurted out, "We need to talk." Isaac tensed and finally nodded, surprising me by saying, "We do." 1 point to anxiety. We talked for around 2 hours. I'm going to summarize our conversation. The first thing I asked was how long they've been in contact. He told me that the way they met was from being in the same psychology class in college and being in a study group. This added up. I know that he's still close with that old study group. Some of the guys in that group are his best friends, Josh being one of them. He told me they've stayed in contact through that group chat but haven't talked one-on-one until recently. The second thing I asked was, "Why the hell didn't you tell me?" I teared up a little asking him, and he immediately started profusely apologizing. I told him that it hurt to hear it from Josh and not him. He said, and I quote, "I didn't think it was a big deal. I know it's stupid, but I just didn't think about it." He told me that they aren't the best of friends, and she just seemed like a good replacement for me until I could be more active again. I asked why he wanted her and why she was the first thought, and he explained how he wanted to do more topics revolving around college life, classes, and study tactics, and she would be a good person to do that with since she was a part of his life during that stage. He told me that he loves me and he never meant to hurt me. He admitted that he knew it might make me uncomfortable, so he chose not to tell me because he knows how much I tend to spiral due to my anxiety. I got frustrated and told him that wasn't his choice to make. He agreed with me and told me he was sorry and he won't do it again. He added that Abigail will never have to come on the podcast and he never wants to purposefully make me uncomfortable. I agreed, saying I didn't want her on the podcast. Then the tables turned a little. I thought this was going so great. We were in agreement and everything seemed fine. I had a little bit of closure and he seemed content. But then he asked me something I couldn't have guessed. "There's something else. She sent me nudes." What the hell? I felt my heart break a little and asked how he responded. He showed me the messages. They were 2 days old. He responded with a single message. I'm flattered, but I have a girlfriend. Yet he didn't block her. I demanded he cut contact with her, and he argued, saying it would make it awkward for his friend group. I argued that I was his girlfriend, and yeah, the situation was awkward. I asked him how he would react if Josh sent me nudes and they got to him. He admitted that he'd cut him off and expected me to do the same. He nodded and agreed to block her. I watched him block and delete her contact. I still didn't feel content. He saw those messages 2 days ago and didn't tell me. That was my breaking point. I basically said, maybe honesty isn't as important to you as it is to me, but if one of your friends sent me nudes, I would tell you within minutes. I kept going and started crying, and he did too. He kept apologizing and saying that he hadn't brought it up to me because he felt like I was avoiding him and he wanted to wait until he knew I was ready to talk, which felt like shit because he was giving me the silent treatment. I wasn't considering breaking up in my last post, but now I don't know. I know this wasn't the update you guys wanted, and I promise there will be another one. I told him that I needed space, and I'm someone who's rare to set my boundaries until I'm really upset. He apologized and tried to hold me, but I stepped back. I'm writing this from my best friend's place. I'm over at her house right now staying the night. I told Isaac we can talk again in a couple days, but right now I need to think things through. The thing is, he cried when I started talking about ending things. Isaac doesn't cry. The only time I've ever seen him cry in our entire 4-year-long relationship was when his mom died. He loves me, I know he does, but I feel so lied to. Maybe I'm overreacting, but right now I just feel betrayed. I'm sorry, and I know this wasn't the update you all wanted, but thank you to all of you. If you want to give me advice, please do. I don't know where to go next, and I still have questions I want to ask him. I'm okay with answering questions, too. I'll try to update if something else happens, good or bad. And if anyone's curious, yes, I brought our cat with me. Update 2. August 27th, 2024. Sorry it's been so long since I've posted. A lot has happened, and I'm honestly not sure where to start. But I'll start with this: we broke up. I ended up contacting Abigail. Some comments thought it might be smart, so I reached out to her over Instagram and asked for her side of the story. She had no idea who I was at first. She then seemed very surprised I was contacting her. She realized who I was from the little Isaac told her, but according to her, he said we started dating last month, not 4 years ago. This information really confused me, and I needed to know more. We met up for coffee, and she filled me in that they've been hooking up every once in a while, in her words, maybe once or twice every 6 months for years. She started crying and hugged me while she apologized, saying she had no idea I'd been his girlfriend for so long. So apparently their FWB relationship never ended, and he had been cheating on me the entire time we had been together. She assured me they had been safe and I shouldn't have anything, but in all honesty, I kind of blanked out. I was with this man for 4 years. I don't blame her in the slightest. I think she wants to keep in contact, but right now it's too painful to talk to her. It's not her fault, it's purely Isaac's, but I just can't deal with anything that is remotely connected to him right now. I'm so confused on whether Josh knew this or not, but I feel like he wouldn't have said anything that night at dinner if he did. I'm so sorry this update took so long. I broke up with Isaac over text, classy I know, and told him my best friend would stop by to collect his things. I also bought our cat and said that I'd like to keep her. He protested on the breakup, saying we could get couples therapy, but I said there was nothing that could fix 4 years of lying. Right now, I'm living with my best friend, and we're having some serious girl time. I'm in shreds, but I know that this was for the best, and it would have hurt more to stay. Sorry again for the late update, and thank you all for your advice. Sorry for the repost, it got taken down and I still want advice and thoughts. Update 3. August 28th, 2024. This is the final update. I wasn't even going to write this, but I thought it would be a slightly happier ending for some of you guys, and in all honesty, for me. Josh ended up calling me last night. At first, I didn't answer, in fear it was really Isaac trying to contact me through him. But after the 3rd call, I did. This guy sounded pissed. The first thing he said was, "Name. I am so sorry." He didn't give me any room to speak before going on this tangent on what a shitty guy Isaac is and how he can't believe he was best friends with a guy like that for so long. He told me that he made a spontaneous stop by at my old apartment, something that wasn't unusual for him, and was confused when he realized I wasn't living there anymore. Isaac admitted to cheating on me, something Josh didn't know but had suspected. You guys were right. He said that comment to warn me. Some things I've come to realize is Isaac was possessive. He wouldn't let me hang out with our male friends one-on-one. He was always lurking next to me. Josh told me he alerted our entire friend group of what Isaac did, and while 2 or 3 of the guys took Isaac's side, what the hell, the rest felt terrible for me. They cut contact with Isaac and those couple guys. Josh told me that if I need anything, he would love for me to ask him, and he apologized again, saying he should have told me earlier when he thought he'd seen the signs, but he never would have assumed Isaac had been carrying this infidelity for so long. So yeah, I guess I could do another update if anything big happens, but this is where I stand. Relevant comments where OP has replied. What made Josh suspect the cheating? Last year, I was away for a week because me and some friends went to the camping. Apparently he did one of his stop-bys to see if Isaac wanted to hang out, and Isaac wouldn't come to the door. Josh thought he heard a female's voice and some noises. Isaac ended up telling him I'd been on the phone with him, which is BS because I had no service for that entire camping trip. When told to hook up with Josh, I already said this to a reply up there, but Josh is the last person I want to see right now, and frankly, I don't want to date anyone. I just found out the man that I wanted to marry has been cheating on me for our entire relationship. I'm probably not going to go back into the dating pool for at least a year. And I'm someone who likes some heavy emotional connection before sleeping with someone. Josh is a great friend, but in all honesty, it was hard to just hear his voice over the phone, knowing that he was so heavily tied to Isaac. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Girlfriend cheated on me with one of her clients at a comedy show, so I ended our relationship. My girlfriend and I have been together for almost 4 years. When I met her, I visited a local comedy club every week to try and participate in their open mic night. I had always enjoyed stand-up comedy, and being a comedian was a dream of mine that didn't exactly pan out for me, but I met a lot of great friends and my girlfriend. She was an employee at the club. She was in college at the time and she wanted to be a talent agent, so she thought she could make some good connections there. When she graduated, she landed a pretty good job at a local talent agency. She was working as a scout to bring in new talent. I ended up giving up on my comedy career when I got a big promotion at my day job. I didn't have the time to go to open mic nights or work on my jokes, so it fell to the back burner. I still do love comedy and I visit my friends at the club, but that's about it. My girlfriend and I continued seeing each other for a couple of years before she got a big break at the agency. We were living together at the time, and everything was going smoothly. She was somebody that I saw a future with, and I was ready to buy a ring and propose. However, whenever we would talk about marriage and starting a family, she would tell me that she didn't want any of that until she was at least 30. My girlfriend was working as a tour manager for a new comedian that the agency was representing. I won't say who it was, but they were on America's Got Talent, and they garnered a lot of attention very quickly. The comedian didn't get very far in the competition, but they gained a significant fan base from the time they were there. We had a long conversation before she accepted the job, just so she could make sure I was okay with it. The position would have her on the road frequently, and she was worried it would impact our relationship. I didn't want to hold her back in any way, so I told her to go for it. It was what she wanted to do, and I trusted her, so there was no reason for me to not want her to go. I met the comedian a few times. He and my wife had grown close from the time they spent together when they first began working together. He was a newlywed. Over the years, he and his wife tried to have a baby. My girlfriend had been working with him for about 2 years when everything hit the fan. I had never suspected that they had anything more than a professional relationship with each other. The comedian landed a 3-month-long tour across the country. All of the shows were in pretty quick succession of each other, so when they weren't performing, they were on the road. I said goodbye to my girlfriend, not expecting to see her again until it was all over. A couple of weeks into the tour, I was curious, so I checked the schedule and saw that they were going to be in a nearby city, so I could surprise my girlfriend by attending a show. I saw that there was one about an hour away, so I bought tickets and booked a hotel room for us. When the weekend of the show came, I made my way to the club. I was standing outside in the line waiting for my turn to get in. At one point, I was standing next to a narrow alleyway with a few people hanging out in it. They were all laughing and smoking, so I kind of assumed that they were employees of the club. I looked down the alleyway, and I noticed my girlfriend right away. I tried to look away and not make myself obvious because I was there to surprise her. But then I heard her giggling, and it got my attention. It sounded a little flirtatious. I looked back. I saw the comedian she was managing pinning her to the wall and kissing her while her arms were wrapped around him. It was a very comfortable kiss. It definitely wasn't the first time it had happened. When they finally pulled away, he made a joke about how that was his good luck charm. Somebody opened the door and called them in before I could see anything else. I didn't know what to do. I continued walking in the line almost like a zombie. I was in shock and completely stuck in my head. I needed to know if they had ever done anything more than kissing. The kiss was already not okay, but I needed to know if there was something more going on, especially considering that the comedian had a new baby at home. While I was in the line, my girlfriend spotted me. She rushed over to me and asked me what I was doing there. I told her that I was there to surprise her, and she brought me back to the green room. I had to smile and laugh with both of them while knowing that there could potentially be something going on with them. His set time finally came, and my girlfriend went out after him to record his performance. She told me to stay behind in the green room because she was going to come and check in on me during the show. I didn't feel like watching his performance, so it was okay with me. I noticed that she left her purse behind when she left. I was alone in the green room, so I took the liberty of going through it. Inside her bag, I found an entire box of condoms. When I opened it, I saw there were only a couple left. She and I had been together for years, and I knew she was on the pill, so we didn't use condoms. I knew they had to be for someone else. That pretty much solidified it for me. She was obviously sleeping with someone, and from what I saw, it wasn't too far a leap to confirm that it was the comedian. I stormed out of the green room, which happened to be right behind the stage, so everybody in the audience saw the door slam open before I rushed out of it. My girlfriend caught up to me and asked me what was wrong. I replied, telling her that I knew she was sleeping with a comedian, gesturing to him on stage. Of course, people started pulling out their phones and recording our little altercation. The comedian was trying to rein everybody back in to pay attention to him while we were fighting, but it wasn't working. I yelled at him while he was on stage too, but he didn't say anything. My girlfriend tried to tell me that I was wrong, but I told her that I saw her kissing him in the alley and I found the condoms in her purse. She didn't have anything to say about that. I went home as soon as I could after the argument and tried to figure out what I wanted to do moving forward. Obviously, I wasn't going to be with her any longer. Our argument was no doubt humiliating for her at the time, but I wanted to do even more. I ended up calling the agency that she worked for and telling them that she was sleeping with one of their clients. I didn't know their employee conduct rules, but I imagine it was probably frowned upon. They told me that they would handle it from there. Some people shared the videos of the altercation online, and that seemed to have gotten back to the comedian's wife. From everything I could tell, they ended up getting a divorce. I can only hope it was because he was cheating on her and she found out. My girlfriend was let go from her job at the agency, and a lot of the clients she was managing were given to other agents. I knew she was disappointed with that, but that was just karma getting back at her in the end. I keep finding myself looking back at our relationship and trying to pinpoint if there were any signs before I caught her, but I don't think there were. To this day, I still don't know how long their affair lasted, but it must have been a while. Now on to the next story. Story 11. Dead BFF's mom showed up claiming my husband was the father. The truth was far worse than I could have imagined. I don't even know where to start. The past 6 months have been an absolute hell, and it only seems to be getting worse. My best friend since elementary school, who I'll call Alice, passed away in February from cancer. She had a 2-year-old daughter who went into the custody of her mom after she passed away, who I'll call Alexis. Last month, Alexis showed up on our doorstep unannounced, telling my husband he needs to take responsibility for his child and either take custody or start finally paying child support. She says that Alice had told her when her daughter was born who the father was, but didn't want anything to do with him to answer the inevitable. Alice was a traveling nurse and made a lot of money, which is the only reason I can think of for why she didn't go for child support. During this conversation, my husband had the worst panic attack he's ever had, so we had to end the conversation before I could get more details. My husband's story is, I don't even know. He said that Alice's daughter is probably his, but that it isn't what I think. Almost 3 years ago, we threw a large housewarming party as we just moved into our dream home after I finally finished residency and was set to make real money for once. Alice was in town and set to be at the party, but I was called into work before she got there. I didn't get back till after 3 a.m. The party was winding down, my husband was passed out upstairs, and Alice had already left the party, which at the time I did find strange as we hadn't seen each other in months. My husband claims he woke up in the middle of the night to Alice on top of him, but he passed out again before he could say anything. He claims he never told me because he was worried I wouldn't believe him, which I don't know if I do. He showed me some texts he sent his best friend the next day, asking for his advice about him thinking someone raped him, but if he cheated, he could have had that conversation as evidence, especially since he never said Alice specifically. Ever since the party, he has been very distant with Alice, and after she had her daughter, he would even find excuses not to be around the house when she would visit. I don't know if that's because he cheated or if Alice did actually rape him and this was his trauma response. Honestly, I don't know what to do. I've known Alice since we were children, and she had never come across as that kind of person. But I've also known my husband for over a decade, and he's not once ever given the inclination of a cheater. He's an attractive guy, and I've seen the looks he gets at the gym, and he's never even given more than a glance. What the hell should I do? How do I figure out what the truth is here when Alice isn't even around to defend herself? She never even implied she liked my husband, let alone want to sleep with him. I told my husband he needs to get a DNA test before anything is decided on the child's part, but in the meantime, he needs to move out while I think about what I'm going to do here. Additional info. OP responds to Alice's behaviors when visiting her at home and if Alice would tell her about the affair. Not that I noticed. She'd always been at least a little standoffish towards him, as she thought I could do better. The first time she visited after she gave birth, she asked where he was since he wasn't home for the first time, but she never asked again after that. I hadn't thought about that, actually. Thank you, that's a good point. She always thought I could do better than him, so if it was an affair, you'd think she would have told me on her deathbed at least. OP on if her husband drinks or not. Not at all. He rarely drinks and generally only at parties, which at our ages are few and far between. He works a tough and stressful job, so I figured once he was buzzed, he laid down and fell asleep. Not that he had drank more than normal or anything like that. Did Alice ever name the father of her baby? She told me it was a man she met while in another state for work. Short-term fling. Comments. Wishes, wait. I get that you need to process all this, but you've told the potential victim of sexual assault that he needs to leave his home, his safe place, and you, his safe person. I think you've jumped the gun a bit here and shunned your life mate who may have been raped. Yes. I'm starting to realize I've made a terrible mistake. Update. August 12, 2024. After talking with you, I've come to the realization that my husband is being truthful. My best friend raped him. Several people pointed out that with Alice not liking my husband, if it was an affair, she would have told me when she was dying if only to separate us. You're absolutely right. I was there in the room while she passed. I held her hands for days. We talked about so much. If it was just an affair, she would have told me. But if she raped my husband, she wouldn't have said a word. That's the type of thing horrible people take to the grave. I've also come to the realization that I made a terrible mistake asking my husband to leave for a few days while I gather my thoughts. Not to make excuses, but losing my best friend to cancer, a long cancer fight at that, was brutal. To say that I was devastated wouldn't do it justice. That had happened only 6 months ago. I'm still feeling it every day. So to have this thrown on me, it's like I'm losing her all over again. Either she betrayed me and slept with my husband, or she betrayed me and raped my husband. Not only have I lost her, but now I've lost the good memories, an entire lifetime's worth. It was impossible for me to look at him and not also see her and be struck with the horror and realization of that loss all over again. I felt I needed to be able to break down, grieve, and think without the fresh wave of loss I got every time I saw him. It was wrong of me to ask him to leave, you're right though. And as of a few minutes ago, I've righted this wrong. I called my husband, I apologized, told him I believe him, and begged him to come home. He'll be here in half an hour at most, and I'm going to support my husband the way I know he would have supported me. I've been an off and on Reddit user for several years, and sometimes the advice given, like these, can be a bit hit or miss, but today you guys did good. You've helped me realize not only that I was wrong and being stupid at that, but that I was hurting the person that needed me the most. I was selfish. I have no idea what we're going to do as far as the potential daughter is concerned, but I can assure you we'll deal with it together. It's going to take a lot of time and probably a lot of therapy to grieve this new loss. I feel numb now, as though I'll never cry again. My best friend raped my husband, which means she was no friend of mine. She flaunted it, coming to my house, sitting with me and gabbing. She brought her child here, trying to rub it in his face right in front of me. She tortured the man I loved, and I was an unknowing party to it. I feel sick to my stomach over how many times she came over just to hold it over him. I'm honestly at a loss on how to make that up to him. If you all have any ideas, please feel free to give them to me. I think I'll need all the help I can get. Tomorrow I'm going to take a leave of absence from work, just until we can figure out our next steps and we can get our heads on straight. Thank you everyone. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.